Hey there, friendlies. How's up? I hope that was long enough to get us past the ad scroll. Welcome to another episode of my fantabulous online live stream. Tonight is the 8th, I believe, of my occasional panel discussion series. Tonight we're going to be talking about winter camping. Before we do that, I just want to get the housekeeping out of the way. You know what I'm going to say. If you're watching us time shifted to tomorrow or next week or next month or next year, thank you. I do love seeing the comments appear after the fact. I know that taking your time to watch my stuff without the ability to discuss things real time is, I don't know. I like knowing that is happening. You guys are really good when it comes to that. If at any point tonight you really like what you're hearing or seeing, then I invite you to hit that thumbs up. If at any point tonight you kind of hate what's going on, that's all right. The thumbs down works as well. And if you want to take a more active role in supporting the channel, as many in the side chat already have, I invite you to check out the join button down below. Click on that. There are 2 tiers and a little description as to what each tier gets you for your hard-earned money. Now, tonight we're talking about winter camping, sort of, maybe some equipment, maybe some discussion as to what to do when the winter is not so great, and all things in between. We have some, I think, cool guests with us tonight. First off, we got Mike Morton, who is kind of big on Instagram. Mike, you used to have a YouTube channel, but you seem to have gone more into Instagram.
Yeah, well, I had a kid, and I only made a few videos, and I just never bothered making any more.
Okay, fair enough. Link to Mike's Instagram in the show notes below. Also, for those of you who watch my other channel, Mike and I are live streaming on my whiskey channel tomorrow night. We're going to be tasting a hopefully delicious Irish single malt. The next guest is someone who I have not had on the channel before, but she does great stuff. She's got a good Facebook channel account. She has 2 courses that you can actually buy and download, I believe. There's one that's winter camping for beginners, and there's another that's backcountry camping for beginners, the complete course, I believe. I invite her to correct me on the name of that second one if she wants to. This is Camper Christina, who I believe most people watching me have also watched. Hi, Christina.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome to the stream. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And
Thanks for having me.
I hope maybe we can do it again fairly soon. And of course, the last guest needs no introduction to people who've watched my channel, but it's author, all-around great guy, Mr. Kevin Callan. What the hell, Kevin? I work so hard to tone myself down for these live streams, and then Kevin comes on and is like, let your freak flag fly. So, links for all 3 of these people are in the show notes below. So, when I started planning this, I had a whole bunch of notes written up, and I sort of had kind of a schedule, and then I realized that whenever I have Kevin on, the schedule doesn't last longer than 30 minutes. So here's what I want to do. Look, you guys are all very adept at winter camping. You guys have all made a lot of content about winter camping. What I'm interested in talking about this winter, because you guys are, I believe, all in Ontario. In Quebec, this winter has not been as billowy and fluffy and snowy as previous winters have been. And it's gotten me to wondering, what happens when, I don't want to turn this whole thing into a discussion about gear. Well, I love gear, but you know what I'm saying? Just to start off the bat, how's everyone's winter camping happening this year? How's the season treating you guys?
Mine's been good. I've been on 3 winter trips so far, and they've all been great.
Yeah. No.
Timing is everything.
It's timing is everything. Okay. What about
Timing
you,
is
Kevin?
everything.
Mike, what about you? You look like a gamer. You look like you're.
My first trip, actually, I'm leaving Friday.
Yeah, you said yours too.
Yeah, so I live in near Toronto area, so we've had basically no winter. We had a couple days around Christmas, and it was cold last weekend, kind of. So yeah, we're taking the train from Sudbury on Saturday morning, and then we're jumping off about halfway to White River, and we're staying there for about 6 nights, and then we're coming back. So that's my answer: is drive as far north as you can, and yeah.
Yeah. I generally don't start going winter camping until around now because usually you get a better winter around now. Before that, you're not acclimatized to the cold. You're like, why am I doing this? This is crazy. The ice isn't safe, and that's the one big thing for me. I'm not going out if the ice isn't safe. And it just started now, and yeah, winter is arrived, but we are going through periods of what is winter. It's back and forth. Where in the good old days, a few years ago, we would have solid ice, we'd have nice snow, we would have good temperatures of minus 15. I was on CBC the other day. They're talking about winter camping, and I said, well, it's got to be below minus 10 Celsius before I go out. I wouldn't go out if it's too warm. And of course, they're all freaked out because they're trying to say, winter is great, but really, are you guys crazy? I went, yeah, I wouldn't go winter camping at minus 5. It just wouldn't be nice. You can imagine 2 weeks ago when we had sort of a balmy weather when even insects were crawling back out of the womb, right? So, yeah, totally different.
And that's what sort of made me rethink how I wanted to do tonight, because what I was wondering is, okay, Kevin, if you only start camping now, like here, we're about to go into some fairly cold weather. I assume you guys aren't that well. A couple of you guys are kind of far, but like, it's funny because there was a comment from Pine Martin down below that he's going to bed, and I believe he was on Dennis's live stream before, so he couldn't be here. But it would have been nice to have gotten his thoughts, because he camps differently than the three of you, because you guys all have these great hot tents and stuff. And Christina, man, you make your own hot tent. We're talking about that at some point tonight, okay?
Okay.
That's cool factors in, like, that's cool.
I might be making another one actually due to the weather, so it's right on line with your topic here. So
interesting. Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that. But like Pine Martin is great at, he does the Quincy thing. He does cold camping rather than hot tenting. So I was really wondering how this kind of weather affects him. But I was remembering an old Joe Robinette video where he was camping in a hot tent, and like the ground inside the tent was just turning to slush, so he left early. Do any of you guys remember that video?
Yeah,
I don't, but I've experienced melts on many trips.
Does that happen more often when it's not quite as cold out, or is it purely just that's what the stove does?
A lot of it is insulation, I think. In my opinion, you got to make sure you insulate really well underneath your stove and your tent, and also to clear the snow and the ice from it, like the ground, before you set up. But again, it's hard to do that sometimes with the weather we've had, with the rain. We had that huge dropping of snow, 4 feet of snow up here. Then it rained for 3 or 4 days. All the water soaked in, the snow packed down, and it turned into ice. Yeah. You can't dig through that. So eventually that's going to start melting, and you're going to have melt underneath your stove at some point. It's just a matter of time. And it depends on if it's warmer too. But I think melt happens regardless of the temperature outside, sooner or later, usually after 3 or 4 days, which is why I don't see it a lot. I do shorter trips generally.
Shorter trips. Okay.
Yeah. Because I do a lot.
If you go on the lake too, that can be a problem with slush.
Yeah, I for all you guys too. Like a lot of people. Sorry, I'm babysitting Oliver, and he's a very spoiled dog, and yeah. Anyway, my world is gone to hell. But camping on ice. A lot of people camp on the lake because it's more open. a question for everybody out there, like, I never thought that was a really good idea, because eventually that is going to melt, and then you're going to have sort of a lagoon in there. I get the whole concept of it, and I know traditionally a lot of people have done it because it's more open and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't like it. What does everybody else think about that?
Yeah, I would avoid it unless absolutely necessary. I just
I
think
don't even like to walk on the ice, so.
Yeah, I'd be afraid of the stove dropping through the ice or something.
Well, I mean, in theory,
No.
the ice is going to be thick enough. Like, you're not going to go through the ice. Well,
Ice fishing and stuff, right? People do it all the time, but
Yeah,
it's just
in ice huts they have stoves, so.
that's true.
yeah.
We're talking about good ice, like.
If you look back at that whole video where a bunch of YouTubers went out, what I call the Rat Pack, whatever, and they couldn't find a place in the bush. Most of them couldn't find a place in the bush. So a lot of them camped on the ice, and you could see what was happening. It was like swimming pools.
Yeah, I was on that trip, and I was actually one of the few people that I walked over there first and found that spot. That's why we ended up being up on the hill a bit. And some of the spots right along the shore of the lake weren't terrible, but yeah, some of the ones just turned into, there was just slush everywhere that ended up freezing. It wasn't as bad as it could be. And we're using boughs, and a lot of people had like the insulating mats under the stove. You can help prevent that, but eventually you're running your stove all day and you're there long enough, you're going to run into problems.
Right.
I mean, Mike, you were on that trip. I forgot. Oh, sorry, Oliver. Mike, you're on that trip. That's awesome. So what about that environment you were in? Looking at it, it was Timmins. It was boreal forest. And I think what happened, I think everybody that planned that trip assumed you can find a place in the bush, but you couldn't, right?
Yeah, and we walked in, I don't know, more than 5 kilometers, but not more than 10. And it was just, we even had good trails, snowmobile trails, as you're really apt to find anywhere near any roads. But there was nowhere to go. There was no flat land, and there's a lot of people. There's like 20 people or something, and 8 or 9 tents. You're just not going to find a good spot for that many tents. Not unless you're all dotted around the lake, then why bother going together? So that was the best thing we found. We dug right down to the lake, and it was solid ice. There wasn't much slush, so we tried to tuck right up against the shore. I was one of the first ones there, so I went up on the hill. There was a spot for one tent, and a few people were able to tuck back in. We did the best we could to protect it. I don't think anyone got soaked, but I know Jim's tent, his got down pretty deep, and a couple other people. There's definitely slush out further where we were walking around and people were fishing, and it was definitely not a muckluck friendly hangout on that trip. There was a lot of water around. It also wasn't that cold. I didn't even bother bringing mine on that trip. It was only -5 during the day or something.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's not cold at all. Especially.
Yeah, it's not good for hot tenting. It's too hot.
Yeah, be a slush pile for sure.
It was windy though, so it felt a little bit colder, and nights were cold enough, but yeah, it was March too. March 15th or something.
Oh, okay.
Jim and Tori
Yeah,
had a bit
Nate
of a
was
hot
there.
time.
He was on that trip.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that like oh, okay, Russell's putting up URLs. Nice. I guess throwing a bunch of boughs down isn't gonna solve that, right? Because they'll just dry out and become flammable.
No, it helps. I mean, there are a lot. I mean, don't pick dead boughs because then you might have a problem. But yeah, you pick live boughs and you do them properly. And I have a little reflective, like it's like a little mini welding blanket type of thing that came with the snow tracker, and put that down on top and you float it on logs. Yeah, if you're there for maybe more than a week without moving, then maybe you might want to refresh some of those ones that are right by the stove. But I've never even remotely had an issue with them looking like they're going to catch on fire.
Right.
Boughs in a slush circumstance, boughs would be better than in a tarp because it's keeping your sleeping system above, the swimming pool, right? But it's not perfect, but it's better. However, when you're doing boughs, make sure you're not in a provincial park because that's illegal.
Good point.
Yeah.
Also, Kevin, you stole my thunder because I was about to ask. I believe what's his name, Adrenaline Adventures, did a few videos with a hot tent that had a zip-in floor, and I think I was talking to Pine Martin about that, and he thought that was not a good idea for several reasons. But none of you guys have a tent with a floor in it.
No, and generally there's a reason for that. One, they end up getting slippery. They melt. You can put holes in them. They hold water. Like if that's the beauty about the pine, or whatever kind of boughs you're using. If you drop something or whatever, like it's just gone. There's no real messes.
Right.
Smells nice. It's a little bit of work,
Smell
but
nice.
generally it's definitely the preferable way. As Kevin said, as long as you're not in a provincial park or somewhere where you can't do that, which is not necessarily somewhere I would target to go anyways.
Right.
Well, the thing is about that is snow is not your enemy out there. It's your saving grace. So, you know, you compact the snow when you get to camp. So you create a compact snow, but snow is your barrier, and to keep you warm. So everybody thinks, I can't believe you sleep on snow. Well, that's not a bad thing, except if it melts and you're sleeping on a lake and it's only -5, and you've got a hot tent and a wood stove inside. That becomes a problem. But at the end of the day, no, it's not a problem at all. The snow is a good thing. Winter camping, remember, snow and the cold is a great way to travel. It's a good time to travel. The First Nations people travel. When I traveled up with the Cree in far north in Quebec, they traveled in winter. They didn't travel in the summer. Right? In the summer, it was bugs and whatever. And in the wintertime, you use the snow to your advantage. Where you're hauling a toboggan, well, you need snow to do that, right? And good cold snow to do that, not slush snow. So, yeah, I would say that actually always remember that it's to your advantage.
Yeah, I say that's a fair assessment. And I'm thinking about guys like Samuel Hearn and all these sort of big name explorers in Canadian history. They like any of them who took any knowledge from the First Nations people did all of their big traveling in the winter, probably for the exact reasons that you're bringing up. No, look at that.
Right, and this, you read that?
That one I have not read.
What?
No.
What? No, let's go back. What? Are you serious?
I haven't read that one.
Okay, you shouldn't have a show. You've never read that book?
No, but you can send it to me.
No, you buy your own, for God's sake. Seriously, you've never. Okay, anybody tell me who's read that? This is the ultimate book.
I know. Yeah, I know. Just making me look bad on my own show there.
Well, of course I am. Someone should.
It's okay.
Please say you've read that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, you're lying. But
no. I lost my copy though. In a move.
Copy, Kevin.
I off-gassed about 2/3 of my books at one point. So lost. And it was just, I don't know why, but that was one that.
No, that's like saying in high school I dated a lot of girls, and I really didn't. Like
I didn't date a lot of girls, but we're getting distracted here.
Okay,
from
sorry.
I did recently pick up a book about.
Who was that?
Yes.
Jess?
I picked up a book about. I said yes.
Do you have that?
Do I have it? No. No, I got rid of that as well in my off-gassing. But I recently picked up a book on, Tyrell, the one that nope, never read that one.
What? Oh, sorry, I'm upsetting the dog.
I just read that one a year and a bit ago.
Okay, what about this one?
I own that one.
Okay, we're good. Continue on with the interview.
Page 47.
I don't have it on the desk, but I do own it. Wait, do I have it on the desk? No. Oh, speaking of classics that I, never had, I recently picked this up.
Good. What recently?
Yeah.
You have a bushcraft show? What?
Well, I'm gonna read this to my kids.
That's an excellent book. Way to go. Awesome.
Yeah. I've been meaning to pick it up forever, but here's the thing, and this is not within the purview of this show, but I'm gonna make it real short. I started working in publishing 22 years ago and stopped reading outside of business hours because I spent all my time reading and editing and stuff. And I no longer work in publishing, but I still do write for a living. And so, is it actually page 47?
I think so.
I thought you were just being a brat. That's amazing.
I am as well, I believe, but I'm sure Kevin can check. I can go grab mine. I have
Oh
a
yeah,
copy.
look.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute, Jess. Okay, I'm going off tangent. I know that, but that's my life. But
It's
Jess, you said
not like this has ever happened on
well,
my show before.
I write all day. I don't want to read at night. That's my livelihood. I'm a writer, and I got books all around me. Jess, like really?
Yeah, but you don't sit in an office 9 hours a day.
Yeah, it's called my house.
Yeah, I worked for 5 years at Reader's Digest. I worked another 10 at a magazine. Magazines are still my favorite print medium, I think, but I no longer pick them up because the same information is essentially free online. I pick up a few like Outside and I see I don't keep anything. I pick up a few just because I like the feeling of reading a magazine.
Yeah, I found out yesterday. I had a meeting with Explore Magazine that I write for, and magazine itself is going up now because people are done online. They're just bored of it because of maybe COVID or whatever. But magazine purchases have increased in the last 6 months.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that because, like, myself and everyone I knew who worked at the magazine I worked at ended up without a job, and like some of them still work in publishing, but most of them are not anymore.
Oh yeah. No, it went for a downward spiral for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad to know that that there's a print magazine out there with rising numbers.
Okay, for heaven's sakes, Mike, take it. Oh, my mother's calling. That is my mother. I forgot. I called her tonight. Yeah.
Well, if you answer, you have to put her on.
No, you do not.
Oh, get it. Mike and I will have a chance to talk.
No, you don't. No, I'll call her later, and she'll call on my phone in a few seconds.
Right.
But I think I turned that off. So, welcome. All right, so Mike, control this interview. For heaven's sakes, talk about winter camping.
Okay, well, how about I talk about the trip that I'm going on?
Okay.
So I'm going with my brother and Adam Romano. He has a YouTube channel as well. So we went to the Winter's Camping Symposium together, and we've gone on a few trips the last couple of years. So we decided we were thinking about what to do. And then Dave Hadfield gives his presentation about the Bud car. And we're sitting there and like, well, damn, that's what we should do. So we immediately started looking into it. And so the train leaves Saturday at 9 a.m. and it goes from Sudbury to White River. White River is where Winnie the Pooh is from originally. So it cuts right across large swaths of, Crown land, parkland, all kinds of famous, near Temagami, all that kind of stuff. So the train, it goes only one way. It's about 8 or 9 hours. So Tuesdays, it goes from Sudbury to White River. Wednesday, it comes back. Thursday, it goes out, back and forth. And then Mondays, it does not run at all. So our plan is we're going to go on Saturday morning. We're getting off near kind of the town of Ramsey. We just looked online on Toporama or whatever and tried to figure out just a small loop that doesn't look too bad. Most of it's lake travel. So we're doing 17 kilometers. We have 5 full days and then 1 day on each end. So, I mean, it shouldn't be too bad. It's as long as the lakes aren't terrible, but even still 2 or 3 kilometers a day. We didn't want to kill ourselves, and maybe we'll have a rest day. There is one place where we have to cross. There may or may not be a portage there. There might be an old one, but it's probably obviously not used this time of year. It's only about 250 meters, so we may have to just bushwhack to get from one lake to the other. But otherwise, it's pretty much all lake travel. The lakes are pretty skinny, so there's not going to be a lot of wind issues, hopefully. So yeah, we're getting dropped off Saturday at around noon, 100 plus kilometers northwest of Sudbury. And then we're getting on the back of the train on Friday. And if we miss it, or if there's a problem, we can still come back on Sunday. And then if we miss that one, well, then we got bigger problems because it won't be till Wednesday. But
oh, right, because of the train only goes one way a day. Okay.
Yeah. So, but you could get, if you really had a problem, you could get on the train and go to White River or something and come back the next day, I guess. But we have a satellite beacon too if we really have a problem. And there's actually logging roads all over. So like the Ramsey, the town is nearby, and there's something else. And you could walk on the logging roads, I guess, if you had to get out. We're bringing a day pack just in case we have an emergency or whatever. But
Yeah, but when you say Ramsey's nearby,
Well, Ramsey's not much of a town either.
no, I know, but at least the train stops there.
Okay.
We're probably 10 or 15 kilometers. But I mean, at least if you had to hit the emergency beacon and you could still be somewhat mobile, at least there are buildings and whatever. I don't know. I've never been, so I couldn't tell you. And I still won't be because we're getting off the train before we go. But it was something different. And it's a decently long trip, 6 nights, 7 days. So we'll see how it all goes. You know, Dave made it sound pretty easy, but he's done it 20 or 30 times.
right?
So we'll see how flagging the train is coming on the way back. And
Oh, you have to flag the train?
well, I mean, you tell them again. I only know these details from watching his video and listening to his great presentation back in the fall. But you tell them when and roughly where they're going to pick you up, and obviously they could be late or whatever, and likely not early. And he just suggesting running up the track a couple 100 yards and hanging something bright to remind them in case they forget. And then we sit there and wait till they show up. I mean, they'll see us when we go by because the plan is to camp pretty close there on Thursday night, within a couple 100 yards even, and that way they won't be coming to get us until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we can pack up and go sit by the train tracks for a few hours, maybe read a book or a magazine, and wait for them to show up.
Nice.
Are you cold camping or hot tenting?
We're taking hot tents. Me and my brother are splitting. It was Snow Checker, and Adam has a Lux or something that he wants. He just got it new, so he's gonna try it out.
Cool.
Excuse me. Yeah, it should be good.
Esker. Oh, Dennis has an Esker.
Yeah.
Now, Christina's got a really cool tent or two. You've made a couple now, eh? 3.
3.
Okay, I knew about 2, but I guess I'm a little behind.
3. Yeah.
So different
2015,
sizes?
2017, 2019.
Okay.
The first one was the TB.
Yeah.
It's about 13 feet in diameter, 9 steel poles, weighs 101 pounds. The stove wasn't good for backcountry, which is what I wanted to do. So then I made the Solo, which is 8.5 by 8.5. That's what I camp in mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that one for over 5 years now. It's starting to wear a little bit, but it's still going strong. And then 2019, I made the bigger one, the bigger hot tent, I call it. It's a 10 by 13.
10 by 13.
Yeah. They're all made out of painter's drop cloth from the hardware store.
And that's what I found, because I watched, you did videos on like your whole process at one point. And
there's full series on the last 2, and there's a blog post on the TP.
Okay.
It was pre-YouTube.
Because I remember being impressed that you were using painter's drop cloth, because I had always sort of seen, these canvas tents as some specialized canvas and stuff, and there you are making a tent out of drop cloth and camping in it in the middle of the winter. I'm thinking, I need a sewing machine.
Just a regular one too, not a commercial one.
That's amazing. And so anyone who's watched your channel probably knows a lot about the whole story and everything, but for people who don't, you want to give us just an aperçu of why you decided to start making tents? I mean, aside from the fact that they're probably more affordable.
I started my blog, Camper Christina, and I was camping along spring, summer, fall. Fall started turning into winter. I don't like the cold at all. I like the snow. I like going out snowshoeing. I like doing stuff during the day, but at night I get really, really cold. And I thought in order to continue with the blog and to keep doing posts every week, I needed to start camping in the winter. And the only way I was going to do that was in a hot tent. And they're really expensive. So I saw on Facebook, there was an Indigenous gentleman, his name is Robert, and he posted a video. They were camping somewhere on Crown land or Native land, I'm not sure which, and they took a whole bunch of like branches and stuff, and they made a big teepee with a bunch of tarps. They wrapped tarps around it, and they had a fire inside. And I saw that and I thought, I should be able to make something like this. So I don't know, my wheels got turning, and the teepee is very interesting. It's got like a wooden ring in the top. It's almost like an idea of an umbrella. So the poles go through all the holes in the wooden ring. There's 9 holes in the wooden ring, and then there's cutter pins that go in. So then it gets stood up, and then the poles go out bit by bit by bit until it goes all the way
You
to
walk
13
them out
feet.
until okay.
Yeah, you walk them all out inch by inch until it makes the shape that you want. And then I had like grommets at the top, and I just hung the teepee around it, and it had Velcro, and I had a magnet and a piece of metal, like a big metal ruler, and that's what kept the door shut. And it started with a fire in it, but that was really hard to control the smoke. So shortly after that, I got a stove from Princess Auto. If you ever want to learn how to run a stove, practicing on one of those is really good, because when you actually get a real stove, it's so easy.
I see.
It's very small pipe. I think it's 3 inches in diameter, and then it was going way up through the top of the teepee. So there was barely any draw. It was really hard to get a fire going, keep a fire going. So then I built the Solo and got a Nyko Alaskan Junior in that, and I used the same stove in the bigger tent. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started. Pardon?
No problems with the same stove in the larger area?
No. It's actually a little too hot in the Solo. I actually had an Alaskan first, and then I got it from Lure of the North, and they switched it. They switched it for me to a Junior. I said, this is way too big for this little tent. Like, I'm dying, but I'm still roasting in it quite a bit, but I like it. I'm okay with it. But it's like Kevin said, if it's -5 or -1, or it's just too hot in there, it's not, it's better to cold camp. But if it's really cold, it's wonderful. I'm usually in there in a tank top, so it's not bad.
One of the greatest joys, that's bombast. Let me recast that. One thing that I love is, being out in the bush and it's cold outside and you got a warm fire going on inside, and going to bed in that context. Like you've been outside and you are like bone tired because you've been doing stuff and blah, 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 or hunting or camping or whatever. And falling asleep at night, you can still hear the wind outside, but it's kind of warm, and you smell a fire and you hear it clicking and clacking away. Life rarely gets better than that, in my opinion.
And you can see the snow falling. I have windows in both of my last 2 tents too, so it's just you can just, in the big one, it's great. It has 5 windows.
Wow.
So you can just lay there and watch the snow falling and see the moon coming through. It's fantastic.
Nice.
I really like it. Yeah. I'm quite proud of them. I didn't think I could ever do something like that, but you never know until you try.
Yeah. I was wondering if you had been really crafty growing up and sewing it all the time or something, or if you just, goal oriented. I want to try this and made it.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I'm very creative, but I'm not really I'm not a good painter. I'm not exceptional at anything, but I'm good at all the things. So I've sewed things before, but I've never made a tent, obviously. But it's pretty basic. I mean, the Solo is just a pyramid. It's 4 triangles sewn together with a zipper in it. It's not super hard. I've had 7 people that I know now that have made similar tents for my videos and have camped in them, and they're fantastic. And they're looking better than mine. They're starting to make, I think I should make another one.
And you are about to make another one, you said, right?
I'm thinking on it. I'd like to make a completely waterproof, because the canvas is treated with waterproof, it's waterproof spray, and it's got fireproofing on it, but it's water resistant. It's not waterproof.
Okay.
And the winters that we're having, especially the last few years, and they're just going to get more and more because of global warming. They're just wet. There's so much rain.
Yep.
And I don't want to go out and sit there and be like, oh my God, is it going to rain? Is everything going to get soaked?
Right.
So I'm thinking about building something similar to a snow trucker. I already have the frame from the big tent. All I have to do is take one pole out, and I have a 10 by 6 frame. So I'm
Okay.
thinking of maybe making something out of ripstop or something similar to that. But then there's condensation issues to think about. So
Yeah.
it's just something that's, I'm just thinking on it right now, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes that turns into a tent pretty quick.
I just want to point something out that David asked, how do you protect the tent roof from the stovepipe so it does not catch on fire? And I would like to invite everyone who has questions and stuff, put the word question in big letter in all caps first, so that Russell just sees it pop up. But yeah, I seem to remember. Well, I'm not going to answer for you. He asked you, so.
You can if you want. I think you know what you're going to say.
Well, now just because I've been looking at that Esker 10x10 forever, right? And I guess you're not using an asbestos liner or anything, but don't you have a square of something fireproof?
The stove jack is made out of welder's blanket. Yeah, like a welding cloth, welder's blanket.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Princess Auto. They sell them for about $25. And I think it's good for up to, I can't remember if it's 300 degrees or 600 degrees.
Evidently, we need Princess Auto.
The gasket sealant is 600 and the welding blanket is 300, I think. But yeah, there's a square of that. My tent also, my stovepipe goes out kind of on an angle like this. It doesn't go straight up.
Mm-hmm.
So the tent stops here and I can have the pipe go way out. I have a support for it. So there's never really ever a chance of that ember going onto the tent. But it is sprayed with fireproofing spray as well on that side.
So when you've got a stovepipe out like that, and I'm trying to remember from...
I know everybody says I don't get good draft and I have problems with, but I don't have
I was
any
just going to
issues.
ask about like creosote buildup or whatever. Is there an issue with that?
I don't have much of one. I went out with my friend Vicky in November and she was scrubbing all her pipes clean, and I rarely ever do that. I know I need to, but the Alaskan Junior, it's the pipes are all telescopic, right? So they all slide into each other.
Yeah. Okay.
This is something. Oh, so when I'm finished with the stove and I go to put it away, and I'm sliding all the pieces of the pipes into the other pieces of the pipes, it's like it's slicing them clean. I do it over the fire pit or, wherever. Yeah. And it slices all the creosote right out of it almost. And then, every once in a while I give it a good scrub with a wire brush, but I barely ever clean them out and I don't have too much problems with it. So I don't know. When I first started, I got a lot of people, sending me messages and commenting saying your stovepipe's wrong. It's got to be straight up. You're never going to get a good draw. But I've never had an issue with it. So I would say never. Once in a while.
Most snow chucker ones do that too. Like ours sticks out the side. We actually have a slightly smaller stove than the tent was designed for because I wanted it to be a little bit more portable. But the only issue I've ever had with that sideways was I went camping a couple years ago with Joe, and we picked this really cool spot out in this like peninsula of a lake, and it just looked really cool. But it was really windy, and we had to set up the tent in a certain direction, and we had problems with the wind pushing the smoke back in. And sometimes it was actually we got smoked out a couple times, and a couple times it was actually really cool. The smoke would come in, and it would create like a basketball puff, and then it would change and it would suck right back out the top, which was obviously cool when it did that, but it looked cool. But we basically suffered through that so it would look good on camera, I guess. But you just got to pick your wind direction a little bit, and if you're camping in the trees, it's not as big a deal. Wood selection can make a difference for creosote. And often those spark arresters can cause that to build up a little bit faster as well.
Yeah, I have an elbow that I just got from the hardware store that fits on the end of the pipe. And I just keep that handy. And when the wind does happen to blow that direction, or even if I'm going out for the day snowshoeing and there's, it's supposed to snow or maybe it might rain, I just put it on so that nothing goes down into the pipe.
It's a good idea.
It's the wind out too, and it's perfect. I can turn it whatever direction I want, and it just kind of nests right inside the end of the pipe. So that seems to help with that problem.
Even if it was really windy, I guess you could just have the elbow pointing directly up, and you would still be able to run the stove just fine and not have that wind ram
Yeah.
effect.
I mean, it's not perfect. I'm sure that it would be, 100% perfect if it was straight up, and maybe it's not exactly perfect the way I have it, but I don't have any issues with it. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of my motto.
I'm just popping this question from Dennis up because I believe that Mike just answered it. He's using a snow trucker.
Yeah, we have a snow trucker crew 9 by 11.5 or 9.5 by 11. It's like really comfortable for 2 people. 3 can work. You just got to kind of move one of the bedrolls out. You're really comfortable with people, maybe 4, but you'd be having to move stuff while you're sitting there.
Right. Hey, Kevin, I've asked you this before. You have a snow trucker too, don't you?
I have a lot of tents. I have 4 snow truckers and then 1 Esker. Yeah.
4 snow truckers?
I have a problem. Actually, I had 5, but I gave my buddy.
Says the girl who has 3 tents.
I was gonna say, I'm sitting here trying to save up for my first Esker.
I have the biggest one I use is the short wall, Esker short wall. I have the Expedition. I have the Solo. And I have a really old, I think it's Expedition, but it was my original one. It's really old. But I also take students out too, right? So I have these tents, right?
I was about to say that.
I have an Esker as well. I got an Esker a few years ago. And I generally use the Esker if I'm going out with my buddies. Like, Tim at Canadian Outdoor Equipment, he actually sells Eskers. So he's used to Eskers, so we'll use those. There's goods and bads of both. So if you guys have no idea about the hot tents, so snow truckers are A-frame. So there's a frame that you bring with you. So it's extra weight. I wouldn't say it's a lot of weight, but it's extra weight, and there's a frame. Where an Esker is 1 pole in the middle, which you could cut in the bush. You don't really need to take the pole, and then you pin it out, right? So, and then you could put a stove in the middle with a pipe going up, or now a stove to the side with a pipe going sideways. I prefer the pipe going sideways. The whole thing about the pipe going up with the sparks coming down, everybody goes, well, your tent's not going to have a problem with that. Well, it could have a problem with that. I don't like a center stove. I think it's great because you can all gather around it at night, and it's your communal thing. But in fact, it makes more sense too, because then you sleep all around it too. It's more communal. Where if you have a stove to the side, then you're all sleeping off to the back, with the stove is away from you. But it's so hot in there. I don't have a problem with that at all. And the biggest thing ever, if you have a side stove with the pipe going out, make sure as soon as you put your tent up, where's the prevailing winds coming? If the prevailing winds are coming into the pipe, it's going to smoke you out. And I was on a big Canada-wide TV show once, and I was on the 401. I put my snow trucker up, and I put it into the wind, and the cameraman was smoked out like chicken chong. Like, he came out of the tent, he couldn't see, his eyes were blurred, and so it's just not a good idea. So going back to the pyramid style, it's lighter in theory because it has no poles. It's cheaper to buy, to be quite honest, because a snow trucker, just so you know, are a lot of money.
Yeah, eye-watering.
You're starting at $1,200, and then you have to get it shipped, and they're mainly in the U.S. They're not sold anywhere else except their workshop, right? There's no stores that sell them.
Yeah. Ours was $2,600 a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Oh God! Okay, so
including the stove, everything, and then we didn't get a big one, right? That's a medium size one.
I won't tell you how much it costs to make my tent.
Well, and there's good and bads about your tent. Your tent, Christina, is and great that you made it, because it's great, but you have to make it, right? Also, in Canada, by law, it has to be fire retardant in the material. By law, you can't sleep in it. And so, if you ever took students out, you're going to court. But you're not. All just felt. But you did say you sprayed the material with fire retardant, which is really good, because that canvas, everybody goes, well, if it goes crazy and burns, the canvas that we have in Canada, both the Esker and the oh my Lord, Mike, what's the other tent called?
Atuk or something.
Oh, sure, thank you. Good Lord. But with those, they will smolder. They won't ignite. a lot of people outside of Canada, I would say in the UK and the United States, would use those other tents that are made of nylon, and they're a lot lighter. And yes, you can put a asbestos cap around where the pipe goes out. But if they ever ignited, even if they had fire retardant in it, they would actually melt on you. So also in -20, you're not going to be warm in those. So if you're living somewhere where it's not -20 Celsius, I think that's fine. I see, again, I watched a lot of YouTube videos in the UK where they have those tents. That's fantastic. If you're in Timmins or where you're going, Mike, next week, you will freeze in those tents. And also, all your moisture from your breath is going up, and it's going to cause crystals to form on that nylon, whereas the canvas tents that we're talking about are breathable. So it's all going to form, and then during the night, it's going to melt down to you in water. So
yeah, I gotta tell you that just the idea of a nylon hot tent gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, I'm just imagining that thing going up and melting all over my poor self.
Well, Adam's bringing one on our trip. But I mean, he can always, if he has a problem, he can come in with us. But yeah, I'd never used one before.
Right.
And by the way, Kevin, I actually looked up the other day because me and my brother were fighting about how much of each part of the tent for us to carry. The poles are about 4.5 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's not a ridiculous amount of weight, but
if someone asked me if I prefer an esker to the A-frame, I would do the A-frame. The main reason is I don't want to go out of the tent and walk around it like it's a spider web. I don't like
because of all the guy lines
things everywhere. I get it. I just don't like that at all. It's just my thing.
However, if you're
However,
on ice and rock, it's hard to set up. It's hard to stake it.
The snow trucker gets set up. Well, what I do with my students, I give them all my tents, and I don't give them any directions. It's great to watch. It's okay. Set them all up. I'll tell you all about it when you set them up. And I just love watching them set them all up. And they'll say at the end, "Wow, okay, this tent is kind of cool, but we're out in the field. What about these ropes everywhere?" And, well, there's a way to set up a tent with ropes in the middle of nowhere. And actually, if you go to the far north, majority of people would use a pyramid style tent like an esker, actually not a snow trucker with an A-frame, because it's more solid for the wind, to be quite honest. But if you don't have, well, $2,600 or $1,200, and also eskers are made in Canada. They're made in Mississauga, in Ontario. So
and Atuk are also made here. They're made in Quebec. But Christina has.
I have a question about your snow truckers, Kevin. You said you have 4 of them. Do they all have the poles going into the pockets in the corners like the Solo, or are they different? Is that a new thing?
The
Solo, she had the poles going into the corners, and I thought that's a great idea. I'm going to change my big one for that. Like
anyone I've seen has had that.
I don't put my poles in the corner in that, though. I use snow to hold my poles down. So yes, you can actually, even if they don't have the holds, you can actually put that material. So when you're, so if you guys don't know, when you have a hot tent, there's material around, so you flap out and then pour snow on it, and you use snow to your advantage. You're like, how do you stake these things down? Yes, you can stake a tent down, but no, you don't stake a tent down in the wintertime. If you got 6 feet of snow, that's not going to happen. So 2 ways you would do that. You would actually get that pole, put that material under the pole, and then actually compact it. And what I would do is I put a bit of water on that, and it freezes, and then ice becomes your stake. And then the other thing is I actually get like a log. If you can't find a tree to peg on, you get a log, put it in the snow, peg on the log, and then pour a bit of water on that, and becomes solid as well. So you use snow and cold to your advantage.
Right.
I learned a lot by the First Nations when I traveled with them. They were in their glory traveling in the winter. They did not like traveling in the summer.
There's a question here from David that sort of got answered, but not quite. You were talking, Kevin, about the difference between the condensation you get in a nylon tent versus how a canvas tent breathes. But how much condensation do you get in the first place in a tent that breathes like that? right? Because there's going to be moisture appearing whenever you have hot air and cold air coming together. But so is there like a condensation?
Noticed any.
Nothing at all?
It's
No,
usually
not
not too bad. Sometimes you can see a little bit on the aluminum poles, or it depends how many people you got jammed in there. Wind, a lot of things. Certainly, canvas are going to be much, much better than nylon or any of the synthetic materials.
Yeah.
Well, I beg to differ on that. I would say that condensation is not as much of an issue in a canvas tent because it does breathe. But condensation is your enemy in any winter element, whether you're tarping, cold tenting, or hot tenting, especially with your sleeping bag. Don't put your head inside the sleeping bag because your sleeping bag will be soaking wet in the morning. So I mean, if you're 4-season tenting too, which is something that everybody should consider because you can do more mileage because it's not as heavy.
Yeah.
But when you do that, 4-season or even your 3-season summer tent, it's the idea of actually you want it to ventilate. So if you don't, then it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But condensation is a huge issue no matter what. Even during the day when you're walking and you got your whatever you're wearing in front of you. I wear merino wool because you don't want to sweat, and you will sweat. You're hauling a freight toboggan all day, or if you're cold tenting, you're hauling it on a backpack. And if you do sweat, then you get clammy, and you're not cold when you're hiking during the day. But when you stop to make camp or stop to make tea, then all of a sudden you get chilled, and that's the end, right? Mm-hmm. So when you wear merino wool in layers, the sweat leaves your body into the wool, and then it gets frozen when it's really cold. Again, if it's -5, good luck to you. It's going to be a bad trip. But if it's -20, it will all freeze into hoarfrost, and then you shake it, and all that moisture leaves the wool, and then you put it back on again.
Because it works itself out, up onto the surface, right?
Yeah. So the same thing at night in your sleeping bag. Some people do an all-night burn, so they'll make sure the fire is always going all the time. So good, my buddy Andy urinates all the time. He's old, and so he gets the fire going all night. I prefer to actually do let it burn until the end, and then sleep, and then get the sleeping bag over you. But I put a balaclava on me, and I don't put my head inside the sleeping bag because to get that sleeping bag dry again after it gets moisture, even if you have a hot tent, it's not a good thing. So I would say that the moment you get wet, the moment your hands get wet, your feet get wet in the cold, you're done.
Yeah, and that's true for any like winter trip or activity. Like, you know, you got to keep the feet dry and warm. You got to keep your hands dry and warm. You got to keep your head warm. Absolutely. Yeah. And what time are we at? Okay, 9:53. I like to let people sort of come on and ask a few questions like after 10 o'clock. But it's never happened when I've had Kevin on because we just and then it's 11. That's just the way.
I'm gonna put the dog down on the couch. This is silly. The dog has to sit on my lap the entire time. But mind you, 2 minutes later she'll jump back up.
Yeah,
all right, I'll be back.
The dog seems more popular than I am, so I don't know if you really want to get rid of it.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, my owner's gone to Cuba and Kevin's taking care of me, and it's hell. I vomited today twice. It's terrible.
Kevin's business card is the Joker. Oh wow. So that's pretty cool. I mean, like I've looked at a lot of tents trying to sort of hone in on the one that I want. One of my colleagues at work, her husband bought the Atuk, but he also bought the Atuk stove and said he didn't like the stove very much. But I think that, you know, Atuk is like a one-man band, essentially. And that's the magic of these tents, is that you can be a one-man band and be selling them. Because we're not talking about a kind of market where you're pumping out, you know, you got to sell 3,000 a month to make ends meet, you know? And I love the idea that this is something that if you do have a sewing machine, you can make one. If you have a sewing machine and you have time, you can make one. But you got to have room, eh? I'm just thinking about an old something Christina said in one of her videos a long time ago. I don't remember which tent it was about, but you
It's
do
probably
need to
the
have.
teepee.
Maybe it was that, but
The
you need
teepee's
to.
30, I think it was 30 feet in like
Yeah.
material and length. It was, I had to do it in the driveway. It was ridiculous. It was so much. And I triple sewed everything. It was insane.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from that build. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
a
have a
lot of,
friend who I used to crew on a 30-foot sailboat, but I have 2 kids, so I no longer do. But a skipper, he wants to make his own sails at some point, and you need some room. You also need a very special machine, but like I do not have anywhere in this house where I could do the 30-foot, and neither do you, evidently, Christina.
no.
I'm just thinking about trying to do that in the driveway on this boulevard I live on.
Well, then you have to get the hard part is the material, right? Like the sewing machine, there's the presser foot, right, where the
Yeah.
needle is. And then there's just that little opening. And you have to put the whole
Yeah.
entire tent through that little tiny. So you need a lot of patience for sure.
Yeah.
But the smaller tent was much easier.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big difference. I think I did it in 2 weekends. That's all it took. It's not a lot. It wasn't a lot.
How long would you say was your design process?
Not long.
No?
No, not long. The teepee, I found a pattern online.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically just a semicircle, right?
Yeah.
And the other 2, I made a pattern out of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then I cut it out of a canvas tote bag and I sewed it together. I actually have both of them. I have the big one and the little one here. And it's just a little
for your
mini version of the tent.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, this works.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try it, see what happens. I didn't spend a ton of money. I think the solo costs $150 in total for everything.
Okay.
Plus the spraying. The spraying is $150 on top of the $150.
But you definitely
that's where the money is. Yeah, the spraying, the waterproofing is ridiculous. So expensive.
Here's a question from David Evans. Question: what is the average cost to outfit yourself with good winter camping gear, clothes, boots, sleeping bag, etc.? Where's the best place to shop? That doesn't seem like a very easy question to answer.
No.
It can be as much as you want. That is for sure. Like clothing is probably the easiest because you can go to Valley Village or whatever marketplace and you can easily buy old wool pants or fleece stuff and whatever. Boots, you're probably going to be $150, $200 for like Baffins or Sorels or something. And again, sleeping bag, you can spend as much or as little as you want. I had a lot of cold nights when I first started, like for years. And I ended up buying, I have this Marmot minus 40 bag and I got it on sale. It was still $700, which is a lot.
Story.
But
yeah.
I love it. And I spent many, many nights where I would have paid $700 to just be warm for that one night.
Right.
So when you look into that account, it was like, all right, $700. I can have this sleeping bag for, I don't know, I've had it 5 or 6 years now. And if I keep it in good shape, there's no accidents, I should have it for a lot longer.
But of course, I
would also have the same bag.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Marmot minus 42.
The red one?
Yeah, it's purple. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's just,
I love it.
You just, if you get minus 20, minus 30, I don't even need to think. Base layer, go in, stick my head out, and I'll be fine.
You can also rent all that stuff too. Like, so outfitter stores rent sleeping bags and just bring a cotton liner or a fleece liner. And also now people are starting to rent hot tents. I know Frontenac Outfitters, Algonquin Outfitters, Canadian, they rent them out. So if I was only going to go on one trip a year for the weekend, I would not buy one of those tents or a sleeping bag. Also, outdoor clubs, they'd love to actually let you borrow stuff. They're notorious for it. Join the club and they want you to go out. So that's a good way, even for canoeing. Like they have a rental program. I know the London Canoe Club. You can join the club. You can use any of their canoes anytime. So there's a way around it. And also, you're right. Go into the thrift stores or the Army surplus stores. You can get those wool pants. But you need to know that it's going to cost you a lot of money. So a lot more than a lot more than summer camping. Winter camping is a lot more expensive, especially the sleeping bag. But my buddy Andy, he takes 2 fall bags, puts them together, and he makes sure the stove goes all night.
Well, I was going to ask that because everyone says if you're winter camping, you need a kick-ass sleeping bag. But if it's, I'm guessing that's for when, like in the middle of the night, the fire goes out and you're stuck, with your sleeping bag and that's it. Is that it? Because if it's like 25 degrees inside the tent, the heavy duty sleeping bag might be more of a hindrance at that point, right?
Well, for me, I don't run the fire all night. I don't bother with it. With the -40 bag, I don't need to. So I feel like I'm just using more wood, and I'm so like that way. It's not a concern. But yeah, definitely 2. You had like a couple of -10 bags or something. Jam those together. It would definitely work just as well. You probably have to play around with. Everyone sleeps differently. Some people, like I don't consider myself a very warm sleeper. I'm somewhere in the middle, a little bit colder maybe. Some people freeze, and they could be in a -40 bag and -20 and freeze. Some people could be in -20 bag and -40 and be half sweating. So you're going to have to trial and error some of that. So my suggestion would always be, if you're going to start, do somewhere where you can drive to a spot or that you can bail out of like within 10 or 15 minutes worth of walking, and try just for a night. And maybe you're cold, maybe you're not. That's one way to learn. You just want to make sure that, the consequences are low. Risk is, a little bit of risk is okay. But as long as you can get out, then if you're cold, whatever, you go sit in your car and let the car run.
Right. I think Christina was going to say something.
Yeah, I'd also like to, when I started winter camping, the first time I went on yurt, the second time I camped in my summer tent with a space heater and a tarp over it. And I used blankets from home. I didn't buy any gear at all. It depends on what kind of camping you're trying to do, right? If you want to spend a lot of money, if you're trying to do backcountry, you need some light gear, you need a great sleeping bag. But if you just want to start out and learn, start in your backyard, set up your summer tent. Be careful because the poles are more easily to break in the winter time. But I've been using 3-season tents for winter camping for years. You're just extra careful, make sure there's not a lot of snow load on it. If there does snow, knock it off, put a tarp over it. Space heater, extension cord, car campground, wool blankets, yoga mats on the floor, lots of insulation layers. You can get away with it for not spending any money, for a while, and see if you like it. Or if, like Mike said, are you doing it once a year? Or Kevin said, someone said, if you're doing it once a year, that can do the job for you. It's no problem. And if you're warm enough, test it out. If it works for you, then why spend the money? But then you can evolve and start getting gear based on which direction you want to go. Do I want a car camp now? Do I want to get into the backcountry? And then start building up your gear from there.
And it's amazing how big a difference just that little, do you want to car camp or go into the backcountry? It sounds like kind of just a...
Well, you should always start in your backyard regardless, and grow.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
It's harder than you think it is. I just, a guy that I know, Pete, he just built his own solo hot tent. He used my videos. He made a very similar tent than mine. And he just went out to Mule Lake for the first time ever, tested out. He tested out in his backyard first. And I said, how did it go? And he said, it was great, but I learned a lot. And he said, I'm so glad that he didn't go in the backcountry first, because there are a lot of things that I have to work out before, I can kind of get to that. And he was all ready, gung ho, to go out into the airfield or go into the backcountry somewhere. But everything is so different in the winter. Everything reacts differently. Plastic reacts differently. Things break, condensation. There's all these different things that you got to consider. Your food, your water freezing, contact solution, there's all these different things. So you got to really kind of test things out a couple of times and make sure you know what you're doing before you go off into the middle of nowhere and put yourself or someone else in danger.
Right. There's a question here from Dennis for Mike. Where did you gain your winter backcountry skills?
Well, I don't know if I would call them skills, but I did, beavers, cubs, scouts, and we did some of that. And again, that was some of my nights spent freezing. And then I just started going with friends and buddies. And then I think the first time I used a hot tent was 6 or 7 years ago with my buddy Joe. And yeah, it sort of changes the game. It makes it a little I did a lot of tarp camping as well. I have done some just cold tent camping, but not as much. I prefer a type to that. But since then, a lot of it's been hot tenting and just trial and error. And reading is a good way to learn, but I always find that doing something can really reinforce it. If you make a mistake, take a notebook. You make a mistake, write it down,
Right.
or if it's a big enough one, you'll remember. And yeah, just try and make it fun. If it's not fun, then it's not worth doing, and you won't want to do it again. So baby steps, and yeah, this will be. I've not done one this long, not in a long time anyways, and certainly this will be more remote than others. So this is
Right.
a bit extra of a baby step after a bunch of years of doing backcountry stuff, but mostly places that you could get out in a day's travel.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, do you post your adventures somewhere, or you have YouTube?
I post
Instagram?
pictures on Instagram, and like Adam, who's coming with us, Adam Romano, he has a YouTube channel. He'll probably be making a video. But otherwise, lately, I haven't even been taking as many pictures. I just try to enjoy it a bit more. And this time, I'm not even bringing my DSLR. I'm just going to bring my phone because we're moving every day. Phones seem to be getting pretty good on pictures. So I'm
links. I know it.
yeah, I'm going to save a bit of weight and see how it goes. If I don't like it, then I will bring it next time. Like typically, I'll set up somewhere and kind of base camp somewhere for 3 or 4 days. Bring skis or whatever and just make day trips out of it. So now they're moving every day, I'm trying to treat it a little bit more like a canoe trip and just be a little bit more careful about not just packing random stuff because I'm only going in 4 or 5 kilometers.
I just want to pick up on something that Mike said about not taking as many pictures. I made a decision just a few years ago to stop taking so many pictures all the time because I realized that I was experiencing everything like this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like birthday parties. My kid turned 3. I experienced it through this like little screen, right? Kevin, what the heck? So like it's interesting to hear Mike say that because what I'm doing is like I'm making sure that I put the camera down and or the phone down and just experience the moment before I start taking pictures because there are so many moments that I didn't experience because you got to get the shot. So
yeah, I started doing even at weddings now. The last 4 or 5 years, don't even bring my phone. My wife has hers if there's some issue with the kid, and it's just like half my friends are there anyways. Anyone I want to talk to on my phone's probably standing in front of me, and it is enjoyable to just do it. And I found that with Instagram. If you look back, I used to post multiple times a day, or definitely.
Mm-hmm.
A dozen times in a week, and I realized that I was like feeling like I had to go out just to take pictures, and I was like, well, that's kind of stupid. That's not really why I'm here. So now, like this last year, I might have only posted 10 pictures or whatever, but
right,
it's just for fun. So that's why, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Right. Yeah. Who's Dennis talking to about where does someone purchase mustard?
I think that was me. I went to Wabakimi, and that was not this summer, last summer, 2021, and I was wearing yellow pants.
Okay.
I think that's what he's talking about.
All right. Here's a question for Kevin. Are you working on another book? I like that hat, Kevin.
Well, someone told me that where's the hat for Indiana Jones, and I have it.
I like that hat.
I was thinking more like John Denver.
Whoa!
Maybe a little more John Denver, yeah.
Where's my John Denver album?
I don't see Indiana Jones there, but
Oh, where's my Indiana? Oh, God. Oh yeah, I bought this hat off some guy in Toronto, downtown Toronto, off his head for $30. Probably about 35 years ago.
of course
Really?
you did.
Of course.
Right. Sorry. I am working on another book. I'm always working on another book, actually. I do a lot of rewrites for Firefly because the books are sold out and I have to do a rewrite. So Top 70 is coming out. The 5th edition of the Pelagos Algonquins is coming out. But I'm doing another. I'm working on another book, and I'll give it to my publisher because that's my contract, and then say, "Do you want this?" And if not, then I'll self-publish this one. But it's called Camp Critters, and it's because I work teaching identifying tracks, scat, chipmunks, whatever, right? So that's what I do. So, I don't do this on podcasts, whatever. That's what I do for a job. So I started writing all this really cool, interesting facts about camp critters. Like, do you know that a chipmunk at the campsite will chase another male chipmunk in the area and bite its scrotum off so it can impregnate the other female?
What a way to go.
Right. Okay.
I did not know that.
I worked for 3 years on a study when I worked in Fish and Wildlife on that process, and we found out that that's exactly what they do.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Very
I don't know
medieval.
if that would go in the book because maybe it's not kid friendly, but of course it's kid friendly. Like, things happen.
Of course, it's totally kid friendly. Of course.
Yeah. So camp critters. Sorry. Once again, I'm writing another book. Yes, I am, called Camp Critters, and
It's gonna be fabulous.
yeah.
Excuse me, art and design. He's big on food. Mike Morton, what are you taking for dinner?
So this trip, more than usual, we're taking some dehydrated stuff. Typically, my typical trip would be like 3 or 4 nights, posting up somewhere, not moving, and then I'd be cooking almost entirely fresh fruit. That's one of the big advantages of hot tenting. When you're camping, you have your own freezer everywhere. You want to do stew or steaks or breakfast, but since we're moving, the first couple nights, I think we're gonna do like sausage and potatoes and some other stuff. But the last 4 or 5 nights, I have dehydrated meals. Most of them I made myself. I have a couple pasta and shepherd's pie, and then I think I bought a couple because I just ran out of time. Mountain House, there's like a chili mac and cheese and something. Yeah,
What you buy take up a lot more room than the ones you make yourself, I find.
the packaging is I mean, with I have like a 9-foot, or I guess it's 8-foot sled. Typically, volume is not super a problem for me, so that's not too bad. And I thought about cutting them down and just putting them into Ziplocs, which often I will do on a canoe trip, but I don't know. I just avoid trying to do as much dishes as possible, so I guess I'll just carry the garbage with me.
Right. Oh, I had a question and oh well. Never mind. Christina, what do you tend to take generally on do you guys have dietary changes that you make when you hit I'm supposed to eat almost no salt, right? And so when I was getting ready for the trip I took September, October, I was like, I'm going to make myself some meals and there's going to be no salt. And I think it was Pine Martin, Kevin, might have been you, but said, no, you need salt when you're out there because you're working, you're sweating. You need to keep salt coming in. So to me, that's the biggest difference that, just being out in the woods presents versus just eating at home. But do any of you guys have special dietary requirements that you have to deal with that might be complicated when you're out there in the middle of nowhere and it's cold?
You need to eat fat, like bacon, or if you're a vegetarian, a lot more of nutrients from that, because it's what keeps you warm.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was traveling up north with the Cree, beaver tail and moose nose was the delicacy. So because the fat content in that, and I would really the beaver tail, and to think of a beaver tail, not what you get down
not
here.
the one you get around Ottawa.
Not the ones we made on the Canada.
There's fat there too.
The actual tail, it's full of fat because it has no fur on it. So how it keeps warm in the winter is it has the fat content. So you would cook that up, and it's just full of fat. And you were like, that's disgusting. But when it's 40 below, your body is like, yes. If you eat rabbit and fish, you will starve and freeze to death.
Right.
Because there's no fat content.
Yeah,
so
nothing in rabbit.
Yeah. So you have to look at that. And if you're vegetarian, just keep that in mind. A lot of the nuts, protein, tofu, and stuff like that. I don't eat a lot of meat when I'm on a trip because, especially in the summer, because it takes a lot of energy to do that. But in the wintertime, I do a lot of stews and curries and stuff in a oven on the or Dutch oven, on the stove, and that's our entertainment. We actually make a really good meal. Well, the one buddy Tim, he makes everything vegetarian, and it's a lot of couscous, quinoa, and stuff like that, but a lot of dehydrated veg and stuff like that, and nuts. but we eat really well, a lot better than at home actually.
Somewhere
Yeah.
here I have that Backcountry Eats book. I wanted to bring it out for the conversation, but I forgot. There's some good stuff in there. Christina, I kind of want to hear what you have to say.
You probably know. Yeah, I have colitis, so most of the time it's pretty good, but there's a lot of situations where if I don't watch what I eat, I'm getting up every 2 hours and going outside, and when it's minus whatever out, yeah, that's why part of why I keep my stove going all night, so that when I come back in, I can warm up, and I'm already awake anyways. So yeah, I have to be careful about that kind of stuff. But same as Kevin, it's cooking is entertainment, especially with the YouTube videos as well. I'm always trying to think up something cool and new. Last year it was minus 30 when I went to Silent Lake one weekend, so I brought drumsticks for dessert. Not the chicken ones, the ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Ice cream bars and stuff like that. Things that you can never eat in the winter. I did a couple of meals where I brought like coconut shrimp and crab rangoons and stuff and put them on a cookie sheet and baked them underneath the wood stove.
Oh,
With
cool.
all kinds of different dips and stuff. And I just try to think of anything and everything. But yeah, a lot of roasts and stews and, fatty foods, rich foods, meat, turkey. I had turkey dinner last trip, stuff like that. So yeah, I try to eat a lot as well. And I enjoy my food out there, especially cooking on the wood stove. I love it. But it does get really hot in the tent when you're cooking on the stove.
But what I liked, the reason I asked that question is because people with GERD or whatever, like people with dietary restrictions.
That too. Yeah, I have that too.
And yet you're still going out there and you're still eating well. And that's the value of what you just said, is the fact that, you can have issues, and that doesn't.
I don't sleep a lot when I winter camp. I don't sleep a lot at all. I come home and I'm exhausted, but I don't care. It's worth it. I love it. And that's probably why I don't go out for like a long time. Like when I do 4-night trips and stuff, I'm just like toast, because you're getting up and, you're sitting outside in minus 20 or whatever for 20 minutes, like 3 times in the middle of the night. You're not feeling rested in the morning. So
yeah,
it's a little tough
you're losing a
sometimes.
full on hour there. Yeah.
Sleep when I die. It's my motto.
I stole that cookie sheet idea from you. Works, like I used it for breakfast. It worked great for like, because you have like I don't bring huge pans, but how much stuff can you put in like an 8 or 10-inch pan? But then you bring the cookie sheet, it weighs nothing. Yeah,
slides right in the stove box.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, a whole bunch of eggs and bacon, do it all at once, and then it was a great idea. And they like go to the dollar store and they're like, what, $5 or whatever? Not even, maybe.
Yeah.
Use it for a few trips and then get a new one if you need to.
Yeah. I love the cookie sheet.
I would never have even thought of that.
I don't know where I got that from. I have no idea if I stole that from somebody or I just thought of it. I have no idea. I've been doing it for a long time. That's my favorite way to cook out there on that cookie sheet. I make everything on that thing.
I like it. I poured a dram because Russell's not leaving me alone. He says, "Jess, pour a dram already. This is killing me." I'm just like, Russell's been putting blue stars on questions, so I'm just popping them up as they. Oh, does anyone do any trapping for small animals? I can tell you, I cannot do trapping because I don't have a trapper's license or anything.
No, I wouldn't even. It's not really even on my radar.
You don't need a trapper's license to snare rabbits and stuff. You just need a small games license.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
sorry, I saw trapping for small animals. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, I do have my hunt. It's just it never occurred to me to go, getting rabbits and stuff while I'm out there.
Well, if you're only going for 3 days, you don't need to. But if you do a 10-day, 20-day trip, I would definitely bring snare wire. It's like when I go on a canoe trip, I'm going to fish.
Yeah.
Right? Your gut's going to love it because it's going to be fresh food. So small games for grouse or snare wire, actually, it all depends how you're brought up. Like when I lived up north and we did big winter trips. Mm-hmm. If you didn't snare every night for a rabbit or porcupine too. Porcupines are kind of protected species out there. They're not protected by law, but actually they're really easy to kill, but they're really tasty. So if you really need something good to eat, then porcupine's good to kill. And people might say, "Oh my God, Kevin, what are you talking about?" But go live up north.
He's talking about eating, people. He's
go
talking
on a 20-day winter trip and not kill anything. Good luck to you. I don't know. I got to say, like going back to what I was talking about. Roasting a moose nose over the fire was a huge experience. I was 21 years old when they did that around me, and they all giggled at me, and I was like, "Ooh, gross!" Oh, it was tasty as hell.
Moose nose.
Moose nose.
Nose, and you roast it over the fire. Yeah.
What's the texture like?
I was gonna say, I'm trying to figure out like what, because you say it's really fatty.
It's like a really rich pulled pork.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
Yeah,
Like a glob of fat off the pulled pork.
Can you imagine though? It's minus 40. You've been out for 10 days, and you're traveling mostly at night with the Cree elders because it's actually warmer to sleep during the day than at night. So you're traveling at night, and then all of a sudden you're eating slop, and then all of a sudden they cook up a moose nose, and you're like, "Oh, that's gross." Oh man, it down like no tomorrow. Yeah. And then I remember they're cooking up some fish fillets, right? And that was really tasty. But your body was saying, "No, I need fat. I need fat now." Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking a 3-day trip. I'm talking like a 10 to 20-day trip in far north at minus 40, which actually isn't cold up there. It's a dry cold. It's not like a damp cold in southern Ontario. I get cold down here actually when I travel to the far north.
Because of the dampness?
It's cold. And as long as you're layered for it and you wear the anorak and you breathe with your clothing, it's okay. And you're very slow with what you do. Everything you do is very slow. So I remember the greatest moment ever was when a rabbit, snowshoe hare actually, was in front of me. So I went to shoot it and I missed. And Charlie goes, "Way to go, Callan." And I ran after it and he's laughing. He goes, "You are one hyper white man." Jeez. And so he goes, "We're going to have a boil up." I went, "Boil up?" Like, God. And to have a boil up there, they actually don't drink melted snow. It tastes terrible. And it's a big bad omen, right? So you have to chisel the ice. It takes forever. Get to the water, get a fire going, boil it up. And this is for lunch, just to have a tea, right? And so I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." And then so I'm sitting there, and Charlie goes, "Okay, let's have the rabbit now." "What are you talking about?" "Well, rabbit or snowshoe hares will go on a run, so they'll travel their same run because of the snow depth, right?" So that rabbit came back by that time, and I'd look at it, shot it, and we ate it. And he said, he goes, "Do not rush while you're out here. Live out here. Do not try to survive out here. Live out here."
Amazing. I didn't know that it would come back. Well, it's like, dude, if I'm somewhere and someone tries to shoot me, you're not going to see me for dust.
Well, yeah, but no, you think about it. If it's 6 feet of snow and a rabbit has run on that run all the time, it's compacted. Yeah. It's like us going for a hiking trip in snow conditions. You're not going to go off the trail. You're going to stay on the trail. The rabbit does the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yep. Moose nose. Yikes.
Oh, sorry, I'm blabbing.
You guys are here to blab. The less
I found that interesting. I'm always learning something new from you, Kevin. Always.
What, Agnes? Kevin is trying to be a celeb? Yeah. You don't know crap about me. All right.
He's a straight up celeb. He's like this with, I don't know, people.
Yeah.
He knows people.
He is the people.
He is the people.
Whatever. I don't know. That's just kind of an odd comment. All right. Sorry. Let's go off about moose noses. Mike, tell us more about your trip.
Well, I mean, nice to do this when I got back. I want to have more details, but yeah. So the route we're planning is we're basically on 3 lakes, and we only have two land crossings. First lake is about 5 kilometers right off the train tracks, goes due south, and this is where we have to hit the 250 meter. Guess we're gonna make it into a portage, so we'll see how good that is or not. The idea is that we could go do this route clockwise or counterclockwise, but we're gonna try and hit the tough part that we may have a problem crossing if there's a ridge or something. Doesn't look like it on the maps, but you never know. We're gonna do that in the first day, so that way if we can't cross it, we're not doing that on like the day before we're supposed to get picked up by the train. And now we have 15 kilometers to backtrack and we're never going to make it. So we're going to do that not the first day because we're going to get dropped off 4 or 5 hours before. We're probably only going to walk a couple hundred yards and then set up camp right away. But this way, if we get turned around, I guess we'll just do something else. The plan is not set in stone. Like I said, we have 5 full days. We get dropped off around noon or 1. So that first day, we're barely going to move. And Friday is pickup day, so we're barely going to move. So we got to do 17.5 kilometers in 5 days. So that's not terrible. We're hoping to make a little bit better time, and maybe halfway through we can set up and have a rest day and not move. I guess we'll see. The winds, snow, all that stuff will dictate everything. There were supposed to be 4 of us, but one guy couldn't make it at the end. So 3 is a pretty good number. We have a bit of redundancy with the 2 tents. If Adam has an issue or whatever, one night it's a bad snowstorm, we don't have to set up the second one. There's lots of room in ours for him to jump in.
Right.
Yeah, looking forward to it. The weather doesn't look great. The first couple of days are like high of -5 or something, which is obviously not ideal. And then it gets progressively colder, more like -10, -15 during the day. Kevin mentioned this a couple of times, but within reason, the colder the better. You don't want to see it getting anywhere near 0. -5 is okay, I guess. Like I have mucklucks I made, and I have like smaller baffins, so I'll probably wear those for the first couple of days. We'll just see how the snow conditions are, and then I'll just bring the mucklucks for later in the trip. They're not too heavy, or I can just wear them around camp for slippers too. Yep.
Is it mostly lake travel you're doing?
Pretty much, yeah. Except, so there's that first crossing that we figure is about 250 or 300 meters. Depends how straight we can walk, I guess. And then towards the end, there is actually a portage in the one section, but it's only 50 meters. So 99+% of it's lake travel, which is good and bad. I mean, at least we know it's going to be flat. If the snow conditions are good, then we're going to have not a problem making the distance. If it's bad, then, well, maybe we are going to be setting up shop. And we're out there, but we have the opportunity to bail if needed. It's just only happens to be every other day. So you could stay 2 nights, 4 nights, 6, or I guess our train, hopefully they don't miss very often. It doesn't seem like, and if the weather's fine, it's probably not a big deal, but we're there for 6 nights. I'm going to bring at least eight dinners. That way, if we do get stuck those 2 days, we're not digging our bags for, trail mix that fell out or whatever. If we get stuck for 2 days, you might as well enjoy it. So I'm going to basically pack for 8 days worth of food. And if I have leftovers, it's not a big deal.
Right.
I'll save those bought and dehydrated meals for the end, and then they're good for years anyways.
Yeah.
And so Kevin just mentioned boiling snow.
Right.
I bought a ice chisel last year, and the first time I used it, I'd never used one before, and I was concerned about it falling into the water, and I tied a line on it. But anyways, I did too good of a job of fitting the pole to it. So when time to leave, I couldn't get it out. So I just sawed it off like 8 inches above the chisel. And like it's been in my garage all summer, and that's my job tomorrow. I still haven't I got to get it out of there. So I set it up. I just carved it like it was going to stay there for a decade or something. So next time I will not fit it quite so tightly. So yeah, that we'll bring an ice chisel. Hopefully I'll get that thing out of there, and then we can just boil lake water. It's a lot better than snow.
Right. Dennis is asking if you're going to be doing any ice fishing on the trip.
No, I'm not bringing anything. With moving every day, the chances are limited, and
right.
My fishing goes up and down. Whether I enjoy it, but it's not like a primary concern for me on canoe trips or winter trips. Early in my career, I did a lot of work. So for my job, I do environmental work for nuclear power plants, and we used to catch a lot of fish via nets and stuff. So I've seen my fair share of fish. So it's not necessarily high on my list of things to do, and it's just extra stuff to bring. So I'm not bringing anything to fish on this trip.
I wish I could fish while I was out there, but I don't know enough about fish, from having a deathly allergy for, most of my life.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
I don't know if I catch something that this is something I can eat. And I don't want to kill something I'm not going to eat. know what I'm saying? Like I know what a salmon looks like, but I don't necessarily know, is this a trout? Right? Because fishing has been out of my like sphere of outdoor skills, I never learned what, this is going to be a white fish so I can eat it. This is going to be an oily fish. So, if I'm out here in the, in the woods and I go into anaphylactic shock, give my basis to my eldest daughter. So like it's a whole skill set that I feel is almost like a paddling or bushcraft 101 skill that I've never learned. Purely because the stakes of making an error are pretty damn high for me. But like, I see, I watch Joe videos and he's like, yeah, I'm out here, I'm going to catch up. He catches a pike or whatever and he's got supper. He went into the woods, he caught a pike and they have supper. Kevin was just talking about, he bagged a rabbit and they had supper. It's like, there's something so primeval and amazing about going into the woods and catching your supper. Like not going on a hunting trip and, bagging a moose or whatever, but, I'm in the woods. I have this freeze-dried meal for later, but, for tonight, I'm going to catch my supper. I love that. I absolutely love that, especially because we live in a world where most people think steak comes from a shrink wrap machine. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's to me an ancient thing happening when you bag a grouse or something, and okay, great, we're eating tonight. I love that. I absolutely envy people who can just sort of do that. I'm going to make that one of my projects. I'm going to bag a grouse on a trip at some point. And then I'm going to be like, Kevin, what do I do with this thing? Okay, calm down. I mean, I know how to skin a deer, but I don't know what to do with a grouse or a rabbit. Excuse me.
I'm sure you can find a YouTube video on it.
Pretty sure of it. Let me just check the time. Okay, we're good. We still got some time. Excuse me, is asking a question of me. Am I allergic to shellfish? No, I just don't really like them. Because of the fish allergy thing, I don't really like a lot of seafood or, water-based foodstuffs. I guess I sort of developed what's the word? A block. Anything that puts me in the hospital sort of creates a context that I don't like to play with. And so for me, water-based food is that context. I mean, I eat shrimp and stuff, or tilapia, because, boring, but it won't kill me. But I do have like fears of taking water food. I'm making up words here tonight.
Yeah. I liked it. I thought it was great.
I don't really love fish either. Backcountry canoe trips, that's one of the few times I do. Like if I go to a restaurant, that's not going to be top of my list. But backcountry trip, yeah, like walleye or whatever, it's all good.
Mm-hmm. I think what I need to do, I'm making this about me, which I didn't want to do tonight. But anyways, what I would like to do is take like a backcountry trip at some point with someone who knows fish enough to say, look at what we caught, you can eat this.
So what type of fish is the problem for you?
I can eat anything that's white and boring. I can't eat any of the oilies. Like I can't eat salmon, can't eat trout.
Okay.
Definitely cannot eat shark.
Well, you probably won't find too many of those here. You're probably a fan of shark.
I'm just listing off the fish that have created problems for me in the past.
Yeah.
He said euphemistically.
You would have to worry about then. So looking at fish, whatever. So it's what the fish are eating. So if you're catching a lake trout that are eating invertebrates, and it's a pink meat, that would be fine for you. But I don't know your allergies, but if it's fat food, if you're eating a lake trout that has been eating Cisco or minnows, it's going to be very fatty.
Okay.
And it's going to be really white meat and blah taste, but that might be a problem with you. So, and if you're out in the middle of nowhere in the winter, that's something you should be concerned about.
Yeah. So yeah, which is why I don't touch the fish.
Yeah, especially if you don't even really like super love fish, it just doesn't seem worth rolling the dice.
Yeah. Yeah, no way. I'd rather learn how to like snare a hare or something.
I have a question.
Hmm?
Jess, are you going out on a winter camping trip anytime soon? Do you
Not this year.
partake? No.
No,
You know, you mentioned you're saving for a hot tent, but I didn't know if you cold camp or.
I have I have cold camped. I haven't gone in like 30 years. I used to do a lot with the Royal Canadian Air Cadets when I was, one of them. And we would get these huge green Canadian Forces tents that you pack the snow up on the side. They're Arctic tents or whatever. They smell like hell. And after, I've done some cold tenting. And I do not enjoy cold tenting. I do like there to be a fire. I do like that warmth there. And I find that as I get older, I'm 50 now. Stuff like that is even bigger than it used to be. Like I get creaky really fast. Like I'll throw out my back or whatever doing stuff that used to be not a problem. Like Leonard Cohen says, I ache in the places I used to play. I feel that lyric like you guys would not believe.
I hurt my hip trying on clothes yesterday. I get it. I'm walking around. I'm like, what did I do? I was just trying on clothes. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah. So what I haven't done is hot tenting. And I really want to. The entry cost for someone who has to pay for one of these and 2 kids, I'm not paying for it alone, but it just seems that there's always other things that, the toilet broke. Cha-ching.
You know what the best hot tent is?
What?
Your buddy's hot tent. It's free. You don't have to hang it up in your house or your garage.
Yeah.
You get to go and do everything, and you just help carry some of it and move on with your life. You just got to make some friends with hot tents. Anytime you want to come, you can come with me.
Yeah.
I got 3.
You got 3. Yeah.
You can use a teepee anytime you want. It's sitting in my basement. I haven't put that thing up in a couple of years. So.
Well, from what you're describing, it seems like hauling that thing through the back 40 is going to be a bigger chore than the other 2 that you made.
I meant like car camping. I didn't mean, let's go right into the back country.
Yeah, I know.
Start small, remember?
Yeah. I think for me, especially because I have a time problem as well. But for me, I think my first winter camping is going to be like either a car camping or like maybe I would set up in my backyard for the first little while. That's I gave my eldest daughter, OG subscribers of mine will recognize her from many of my videos. I got her a little tent for her birthday. She's been on my arse about. Was that rude? On my arse? Is YouTube going to kill me for that? She's been asking for like a camping kit, a camping and bushcraft kit. Mm-hmm. And so what I've been doing is just sort of building her one up, Christmas and New Year's, Christmas and birthdays. And so I got her a small tent. And no matter what tent, we always use a tent for the first time at home or near home. We used to go camping in this Columbia thing that's, a six person, whatever. But, it's huge for just her and me. And at that point, she was like 5 or 6. So then I right now I have a Hubba Hubba 2. Is that what it is? Hubba Hubba something? It's a little 2-person tent, which was a gift from one of my subscribers. Is Tenenbaum here tonight? Anyways, so, he came to see me he didn't come here to see me, but he was in Canada visiting family in Toronto, and so we met up in Ottawa, and he presented me with this tent. I was like, what? But the first time we used that was in the backyard. To me, I always use my stuff, no matter what, outdoor gear, implements, anything, in my backyard or lakeside at my mother-in-law's, because I need to be able to bail if anything goes wrong. And this is what you were getting at, Christina, was saying, like, your first winter camping, do it at home, right?
Somewhere
like,
safe.
Somewhere safe, somewhere, or even like, and this is true if you're doing it with kids for their first time, somewhere where if the kid is really not having a good time, she can just go inside and have a hot chocolate and watch a cartoon until she falls asleep.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, well, yurts are a good way to go that way too. That's pretty good. You have that inside comfort, but you still, some of them can be backcountry-ish, and it's pretty safe way to get started. You don't have to worry about bringing fuel and wood and
yeah.
Yeah, and some of them have wood stoves, so you can kind of learn how to keep that going and work that.
I've never seen a small yurt though. Now I'm saying that, like, I haven't seen a million yurts. I've only, like, in real life rather than on screen, I think I've only ever seen 4, but they all seemed fairly large. So I'm thinking about packability and stuff. I'm saying.
What do you mean for the yurt?
Yeah.
Well, usually the yurt's sitting there, packed,
like,
set up already, right? Like you're just renting one and it's already there.
Oh, you rent one like one of those Parks Canada has these things called authentic.
Sure,
the
bottom's
wood.
wood.
Pack, they're Utopia. It's like it's a tent with wooden sides that you just rent time in. Okay.
Yeah, most of the Ontario Parks ones look like a Mongolian type shelter. Like at the bottom half's wood. They're probably 15 feet in diameter or something, and then canvas top. And a lot of them are moving towards electric heat, but there still are wood stove ones.
In Quebec's national parks, it's a canvas tent, but it's like a long tent, wooden sides, canvas top. They're called Hutopia, I guess. Of course, they're made in France because we are self-colonized like you wouldn't believe in Quebec. And they're very good for what I call glamping and my wife calls camping. Especially if you got kids, right? Because there's 2 double beds or something in them already. Not even bunks. Just David, we're not talking about squirrels tonight. We're not talking about the squirrels. You don't want to see me get grumpy. David's throwing me off now with the squirrel talk.
Bunk beds.
Yeah, like
the ones in Ontario Parks, there's like a big bed on the bottom and then a smaller bed on top, usually.
Okay, these ones are side by side, and there's like a table and a kitchenette in there, and some of them have a gas stove out the front, and some of them have an electric stove out the front. It depends on which sit back you're at. And it's funny because the first time we went to one of those, my wife was like, "This is what we're gonna do." I'm like, "This is not camping," blah blah blah. And then we got there, and within 5 minutes of opening the trunk of the car, it was pouring. So I gave her the win on that one, because if we'd gone the way I wanted to go, I'd still be fighting with that big stupid Columbia tent. You know what I'm saying? And so I've been warmer to the idea of sleeping in these things ever since. But it's good to know that if I ever go to Ontario, I can try a yurt out.
Yeah, the yurts in Ontario Parks, you're not allowed to cook in them. I don't know if it's all of them. I think it's all of them. Kevin probably would know better. But you're not allowed to cook in them. There's a table and chairs. Some of them have barbecues provided. Others, you have to bring your own, but you have to cook outside. You can eat inside, but you can't cook inside at all. In most of them that I'm aware of. I don't know if there's any that you can do that in.
Right. Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah,
it's mostly for sleeping and hanging out.
And they've changed, and they will change 100% soon to all electric or propane heating, not wood stoves, because wood stoves are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the
Everything's dangerous.
They're also going to get rid of yurts and do more cabins in Ontario Parks. That's the plan right now. If you look at Silent Lake, when you went there last week, or no?
Yeah, they just built a brand new yurt when we were there in March.
Yeah. Well, according to the
Two of them,
superintendent,
actually.
yeah, they don't want the yurts anymore. Too much maintenance, and they degrade. So they built all those cabins. I don't know if you saw them, but there's a whole bunch of
No, I was in the walk-in site when I went.
Oh, okay. That's great because they started that.
It was great. I was the only person tenting. There were 4 yurts they were taken, and I was the only person in a tent. It was great.
So that's new to Ontario Parks, especially Silent Lake. They actually opened up more backcountry, or not front country, back sites. So Silent Lake, you used to only be able to do 2 loops, like basically only sites. Now there's a bunch more. Why is so many people are going winter camping? So
they have hydro. I just camped at Killbear last weekend.
Yeah, cool.
Killbear has opened up 10 sites just the weekend before this one passed. They just opened, and they have 10 sites open in the Beaver Dams campground.
Oh, cool.
And they're all beside each other, which is kind of dumb. They planned the whole section, but I talked a lot to the park warden. She's only 21, 22. She's amazing. But she said it comes down from Ontario Parks. They pick the section, they pick the sites, and they kind of won't let them have any say in it. But they're fairly open, but beautiful comfort station, nice and warm in there. They have a space heater going, and all the, everything's snowshoeing, right? Because none of the trails are really open. They're grooming for skiing soon. They haven't yet, but it was great. There was like nobody there. It was awesome. There were 4 people camping on Friday night and 3 people camping on Saturday night. So,
you know what's funny?
All the trails to yourself, everything. It was just fantastic.
That sounds absolutely heavenly.
And they're all electrical sites as well.
Oh, they're all electrical. Interesting.
Yeah. So you can go with a summer tent and a space heater if you want to try.
Right. Yeah, I get it. But something that you did mention, Christina, reminds me of how I used to hate winter. I couldn't stand, like I didn't like downhill skiing. I liked cross country, but not enough to really like winter and stuff. And the 2 things that completely changed my mind and turned me into like team winter was having kids and getting snowshoes. Because snowshoes have become my wintertime thing. You want to go downhill skiing? Yeah, go. But if you want to go snowshoeing, I am there. And I don't know what it is, but like my wife and I went snowshoeing together for the first time years and years ago now, and just never looked back. Absolutely. And when we bought Camille her first set of snowshoes several winters ago, it's funny, like she put them on and just so my mother-in-law lives on a lake that gets like big ice in the winter and snow on top. Yeah, I love those. We don't have those. I have a very tiny set of those that my wife had when she was a kid, because her stepdad is Mohawk. But yeah, there's a magic to that. Are those new? That looks new.
No, they're really old.
Were those lower than north?
Yeah.
With a monoline, yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Are they going to start making stuff again at some point, or are
they announced that they are now. Yeah.
Okay, because I wanted the mucklucks, but
it's not them; it's someone else they hired to do. So,
they've outsourced the business. They're really nice people.
Yeah. It's all great. It's all good news. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we bought Camille these little snowshoes, and she was, I don't know, 5, 6, and she just went. Like high speed, zoom, went. She did fall once, but then got up and because we bought her little poles as well, and she's and then she stops and looks back at me. You coming? Kind of thing.
Yeah, my son's fast on his.
Yeah, there's something about setting them up as kids. They just know what to do, I guess. What? I see axes. Kevin, you can't do this to me.
All right. So show and tell. Someone said do show and tell.
Okay.
All right. So forest axe, right? This is actually Ray Mears gave me this when I was working with him on some films. Kind of cool. Lightweight for winter, but good for limbing and stuff like that.
Wait, is that a forest axe or a small forest axe?
No, a forest axe.
Forest axe, the full size. I have 2 Wetterlings full size forest axes. Great axe.
Okay. Yo, it's a lovely axe.
Yeah.
One I also use in the winter. I will take that forest axe, but also this, which
Yeah.
is a splitter. It's not a
That's-
maul. Well, I call it a maul, but it's not a maul.
No, that's the splitting axe. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
do
small
that.
splitting axe. That's a
Really
grassroots as
heavy.
well.
But actually, the last couple of years, I've been doing this one instead. So it's kind of combined.
Is that a council tool?
Yeah, and it's got this thing you put over you. So when you
Yeah.
get your whatever clothes on, you have it on your back and
Mhm.
as a sling. So
That's
yeah,
handy.
I love that. It's a bigger axe for me, but I gotta say, instead of I used to take those two,
Mhm.
now I'm taking this one. Yeah, but I love the wedge. On
Oh,
it.
that's a council tool. All right.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's what's really nice.
I have an extremely nice council tool that was given to me by Craig Roost, who designs for them.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Cool.
And it's funny because for axes, I was like, I don't drive American.
Kevin wants attention. Agnes. Sorry, like I don't know what your problem is, but if this continues,
Oh,
I'm
what's happening? Who is this person?
You know what?
Somebody talking shit about you? Let's kick their ass.
No.
Okay, we're
Whatever.
not kicking anyone's ass. Agnes is not.
Whatever. If you think I want attention, like, okay, continue. So
This is the one. I have similar to you, Kevin. I have the Scandinavian Forest Axe. Had that for a lot of years. I bought this one a couple of years ago. This is like the Ray Mears version.
Right.
I forget what he actually calls it. Do you know, Jess?
I don't remember. It's
So
like
it's-
the small forest axe, but there are some nice differences there.
Well, it's bigger, so it's
Yeah.
a much fatter head than the Scandinavian one. It's it's a little bit heavier, and it's a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
It's like a couple inches shorter, and it's much better for splitting than the Scandinavian Forest Axe. It's been pretty good.
I had said to you, man, you've had that a long time because we discussed that actually a couple of years ago.
Three
I
or
had
4 years,
said,
yeah.
Yeah, that I was afraid to order it because I was afraid of the price. But you didn't. You said it wasn't that bad.
Well, I mean, it looks like a great deal now because the Grand Forest stuff is so expensive. The Scandinavian Forest Axe I got for my 30th birthday, which is almost pushing 9 years ago now. My brother and wife bought it for me, and it was like $120 at the time. Those things are like $2 something now for sure.
Yeah. And in fact, I feel that they're too expensive now. Like
Yeah,
I have.
I agree. I haven't bought one in years.
Yeah, no, not gonna do it. I do love the Grands for his magic, but not for the prices that they command now.
Yeah, $100 for an axe the rest of your life doesn't sound like such a bad deal, but
Like getting close to $300.
$250 is pretty expensive.
Like my Scandinavian forest carving axe, my big carving axe. When I bought it, it was like 200, and now it's really getting close to 3. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's kind of getting into like handmade boutique. That's not really what I'm interested in. I just want something that I can use, and it's good.
I do like boutique, but I have a beer budget, not a champagne budget. So,
Yeah, I'm not buying anything to hang on the wall. So all my, everything gets used, gets dirty.
That's the thing, right? Once your axe is $300, be like, I can't use this. I'm like, no, you use that. You use that. They become true tools when they look like they've been, when they got some scuffs on them. All my outdoor gear has been used, and it looks like it. And that's what this stuff is for. It's for improving your experience in the great outdoors, or if you're more into survival, keeping your ass alive while you're in the great outdoors. But I mean, at the end of the day, you buy a $400 knife and leave it in a drawer.
Yeah. 2 or 3 years ago, I bought a Lure of the North anorak, and the first trip I took it was, they're white as snow, and I was like, okay, I got to do something about this. Anything I could find dirty, just rubbing my hands in dirt and just grabbing the dirtiest branches I could find. I'm like, all right, here we go. Got to get some dirt on this. Go to clean the stove out and knock half of it on it.
Yeah. And I love those anoraks. Kevin, is yours a Lure of the North as well? I think it is.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful. I want to get
That's
them
the
as
kind
a
of
kit,
stuff-
though.
That's the kind of stuff that adds up, like what the guy was asking earlier about. You can do it for fairly cheap, but like some of the stuff does work better. Like those anoraks are really hard to describe until you try using one. And it's just like a big tent that you don't care if it's dirty. You really have a tough time destroying it. it breathes so well. It's just hard to describe to someone what it actually is until you use it.
Yeah.
Whether it's worth it or not is up to you, I guess, for the value. But I love having mine.
Well, I've sort of had this conversation with Mike and Kevin a little bit before, but I've never asked Christina. I will gladly spend a little extra for something that just sort of gives me the fizz. You know, you look at something as like, whew. To me, there's a monetary upcharge that's worth that, and some people don't. I got this buddy Chuck. I met him back in university. He called himself the original Aboriginal. He lives on Gakhnawage, and he's a tree farmer. And for him, it's a source of pride that everything he has, from his truck to his tools, he bought at a junkyard and brought back to life. Like, to him, the fizz is recycling the crap out of old stuff, so that. And like I had a conversation with him about it, because like, to me, the car we have in our driveway is the last internal combustion only car we're buying. My wife and I are in agreement. If we go back to being a 2-car family, we want one electric, one hopefully plug-in hybrid. And he's saying, well, I bought this old truck that was headed for the scrapyard, and with my own 2 hands, I'm keeping it on the road. And he's like, so who's greener? Right. And I mean, he does have a point in that if you take old stuff and bring it back to life, that means you're not buying new, and let's face it, especially with cars, plasticky crap. You know, so whereas to me,
You
like,
also don't have to dispose of the car.
well, yeah, right. That's where I'm sort of giving him the points. It's like, you're not throwing a car into a landfill or recycling or whatever they do with old cars. You're not buying a new with all the stuff that you know goes into that. But I mean, I'm hijacking my own question here. Like, both of these guys have some great gear. You've got some really nice stuff too. Oh yeah, you're with H2O Canoes, right? Like, do you have a
Yes.
deal with them?
Yes.
So I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
like I've looked at their
sorta.
stuff. I mean, you know, you've got some cool gear too. But do you feel that like some stuff just excites you, so you'll spend the money, or is it all practical all the time for you?
My backpacks I've had since my very first trip. I have 2 of them, the same ones. I paid $20 a piece for them.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. I don't know if I'll ever change them, because I know where everything goes. Everything's got a spot, and it's like my home. When I'm away, I can probably unpack and pack my pack with my eyes closed in the dark, because I know where everything goes.
You know it.
So
You
it's got
absolutely
that
know it,
comfort to it, you know. I don't have a lot of new gear. I don't buy a lot of new things. I just everything that I have works, so I don't really find the need for new things. Sometimes, you know, every once in a while something turns in my head and I'm like, oh yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
But it's not too often.
It's really satisfying when you're out there and you have stuff that you bought cheap or you've had forever, and it's really nice. Like, if you just don't care about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, not that you're intentionally being abusive, but whatever, you bought a $10 wool sweater from Valley Village, and you're like, I'm just going to use it for what it's intended. And if I accidentally rip it, it's like, either I'll fix it or it's $10, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like a $300 or $400 custom made like blanket sweater thing. And like,
Yeah.
I find that I have some old stuff that I've had forever, some used stuff I bought, and some new nice stuff. And like, I always get the most satisfaction out of the stuff that's like been used hard and like it has nothing left to give me, and I'm not worried about destroying it. Otherwise, what's the point in having it?
Yeah.
And there is a real value to stuff you've had forever, and that just it fits like old slippers kind of thing. Like Christina was just saying about her backpacks.
Like that's my winter knife,
Yeah.
neck knife.
Is that a Hella?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter the brand, but actually just the idea of having it over your neck.
Mhm.
Because here's other knives I've taken. Like, love that knife, right?
Mhm.
And actually, this in the summertime, all the time, taking that, right?
Okay.
It's got, oh my lord, it's full of burnt resin. Oh, that's okay.
Now,
What are
Kevin,
you gonna do with that?
when Ray Mears was giving you crap about your knife not being sharp. You were not listening, evidently.
That's really bad, actually. Yeah. My buddy Tim at K Outdoor Equipment, every time we do a trip, the first thing he does when we get to camp, he looks at all my tools to see how sharp and nice they are, and just looks at me like, Kevin. But a neck knife in the wintertime is really a godsend because it's around your neck. If you're in a hot tent and let's say it starts burning, that's not gonna happen. But you have this around your neck. It's not on your waist, and it's not under your anorak. So yeah, they don't make this brand anymore. I found out, but
Yeah, I actually found that out last week because I'd been looking at those for years. That's the Algonquin or something, right?
yeah. I mean, they
love
have
small
similar
knives. Yeah, because I don't need a huge big thing, especially if you have an axe. I like something small and light.
Yeah,
Another conversation we've had a lot. Mike likes a 3-inch blade. I like a 4-inch blade.
Yeah, mine's right here actually.
Yeah, we're both unanimous in that neither of us like a 5 or 6, but to me a 4-inch blade is my favorite. It's perfect.
Yeah, I don't like anything too big. This one, I'm not sure exactly. It's like 75 millimeters or 80 maybe. Yeah, some guy in Finland made it, and he had to put the Canadian flag in there.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
Sacco Honculetti. I've got one of his blades as well. That's the one that
same thing. I just like to wear it, on the neck, because if I find I don't like wearing a big heavy thing on my belt, and if it's in your bags, and you're never going to end up using it. So I agree. It seems to be the way to go.
And you guys do stainless for the winter, I guess?
This one's carbon, I think, but I don't know. Not too big a deal.
No.
Just clean it up and
deal
with it when I get home, or forget and then deal with it.
I bring a little thing of oil, just to keep my stuff from rusting too much before I get it home. But hey, here's an interesting thing for all three of you. Like, I see taking care of my tools when I get home, like washing them off, oiling them up, as part of the trip. And I had to start seeing it that way so that I didn't see it as an epic freaking drag. I'm like, I'm home, leave me alone. Like, so I in my head, I've worked, cleaning the knives off, oiling them up, putting them in the dish rack, which does get me looked at in Ascons on occasion. Like, that's part of the trip for me. Because otherwise, I would just drop the stuff at the door and go to bed or whatever. And like 3 days later, my knife has, let's just call it patina, okay? Because it makes it sound like I meant for that to happen. Like, I know that Kevin, he'll come home from a winter camping trip, and next thing you know, he's got like this tent draped across his living room. We know it's happened. But like,
Mine's in my basement, same way right now.
Same way, yeah. It's drying out in the basement.
As soon as I got home Sunday, everything's got to get hung up before I can sit down. Yeah, otherwise, I'll just leave it there, and then
you'll just leave it.
Yeah, and you can't. You have to take care of your stuff.
Especially because
so it can take care of you, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. Take care of your gear, and it'll take care of you. And I find that with winter. Well, look, as I said, I haven't gone winter camping in like 30 years, but on a really rainy camping trip, it's the same thing. You gotta dry out your stuff. Yeah, you gotta dry out your stuff so it doesn't rot or develop mold or whatever, or rust. And so I needed to change my philosophy of what it was to not just drop it and go. And then end up with like, oh my God, I used to love this thing and now it's all wrecked. Am I the only one who sort of, yeah, you guys are all like, no, I hate unpacking.
No, that's one of my least favorite parts is like ripping, putting it all apart. Like, I live in a townhome, so my garage is not that big. Mm-hmm. But my rule is I do it like the instant I get home. I just spend half an hour, rip everything apart. I don't want to do it, but then my garage just bombed for a week. I got stuff hanging everywhere, and
drying out.
Just go in every couple of days and rotate stuff if I need to. And
takes about a week.
Especially that's why I send them with the hot tent, if someone else can dry it out, because those are usually the worst. They're big and bulky and.
Well, so how long does it take to dry out a hot tent after a winter trip?
I just hang mine up until the next time I use it.
Just
throw it in the basement. I have a bunch of lines set up in my basement, and every tent has a spot, and I just throw it over there, and it'll stay there until I pack up for another trip.
Wow. If I tried to do something like that with this basement, I would be sleeping on the couch for the next 10 years.
I don't have a finished basement. I live by myself, so it's all good. All my gear is everywhere. I don't care.
Okay.
Nobody's coming over.
I'd say over at least 24 hours, not 2 hours. If canvas soaks in the moisture, the next year you'll have mold, and you can get stuff to get rid of that mold. It doesn't really get rid of the mold. So
No, what's it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. What? There's a saying there that I don't know if I think I blew it, but prevention is key. Prevention is absolutely key. Absolutely.
I usually leave mine like a week, but like it ends up being in my garage, which is sort of heated, so it's 5 degrees. If you wanted to move it faster, you could hang it and stick a dehumidifier right in the middle of it and let that blast. That would certainly, but I don't know. I'd leave mine like a week, much longer than I think is necessary because I just don't want to put it away and come back in the fall and
Right.
have to figure that out.
Okay, so again, we totally forgot about the second hour being for people to come on and ask questions. It's currently 11:06. This show is supposed to go till 11. So let's say we go until 11:15 and then shut her down. You guys okay with that?
Yep.
Because I'd feel kind of stupid just like, okay, bye. You know, once the conversation is going really well. But yeah, so like, I keep wondering, like, it takes space to dry out your stuff. Oh, by the way, are you guys like team toboggan or team poke when it comes to dragging your stuff to the back 40?
I went back. I made a plastic. I didn't make the sled. I have a Pelican blue. Some of you've seen it. It's just the blue.
Yeah.
It was $10 a Canadian Tire. I think they cost like $40, $50 now. Same sled. It's about 5 foot. I made it into, a bulk, whatever.
Yeah.
I used that for a while, and then a couple of years back, I got a Whiskey Jack. I loved it. It's great toboggan. I have nothing bad to say about it. John's amazing. He makes great things, but I was finding that because I had more room, I was using more room. And unlike you guys, I don't lake travel generally. It's very rare that I will walk across a lake I'm usually by myself. I'm not going on a lake by myself unless it's, I know it's, you know what I mean? I'm not, because I got that thing strapped to me. I'm going down. I'm not. So I do a lot of trails and, walking through up and downs and stuff. And I couldn't pull it. I was just I was just putting too much stuff on it because I had the room and it was too heavy. And so I switched back to the Pelican, and it's lighter for me, and I don't put as much stuff on it, and it's easier for me to pull by myself. So
those are a lot better too if you're on a cross angle, like you're walking, not necessarily up and down a hill, but like if there's an angle to you as you're walking. Those, I have a Whiskey Jack as well, and they're so slick that it just
slide into your feet and the back of your ankles and stuff.
Yeah, or into the ditch, into the side or whatever. But
yeah, like they're great. They're great. I have nothing bad to say about them. It just wasn't good for me going by myself. That's all. So.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah, for sure. Like, there's definitely pluses both ways, and especially like you said, you can find. I have one too. I think almost everyone has one of those Pelicans because they were $20-$30 at the end of the year clearance, and you can not kill them. They're great.
Right.
It's a good place to start for sure. And maybe don't ever need to graduate.
Well, it's funny how often like a good place to start just for some people ends up being what they use. Like because you develop a comfort with a certain thing, a certain yuga or whatever, and you never feel the need to change that up.
If you wait till you have everything you think that you need that is perfect and the best, like you'll never get started. You better just get started and get going and make your mistakes and then figure out what you want to do before you spend a ton of money.
Yeah, and where you want to make the mistakes is with the $20 Pelican rather than the super expensive toboggan. But Kevin hasn't told us what he uses.
Well, I wouldn't want to be a celeb and actually comment on this. Sorry, that person's really pissed me off. I should be quite honest.
You know what she's saying? She's saying that she's not a troll. She's supporting Christina. And by the way,
actually, that's fine. But welcome to your basement.
I don't have any problems with Kevin. I don't know what's happening. But...
Yeah. Anyway, that's
Kevin and I are friends. He's awesome.
Me. I care about those people. So I use both. It all depends. If I'm going cold tenting, I will use a pulp because it's more lightweight because it's a cold season tent. But pulling a hot tent, I'm going to have a stove and stuff, so I'm going to use the freight toboggan. I used the longer one, basically because that's the one I have. Actually, that one cracked last winter because of the extreme cold, and so I got a new one. I didn't know they cracked. It actually completely snapped on me before the trip, thank goodness. So I got a new one, and the one thing about that is that if the frost goes on the bottom of it, you have to scrape that off in the morning. If you don't, it's like pulling cement on the trail. Yeah, so you got to do that. So I would do the freight toboggan, but to make your own polk is really cheap compared to doing a freight toboggan. So if you're going for the first time, but when you do that, the bars that you're using, I use PCV pipe with a rope in between. I would do this
like this, yeah.
If you go around a corner, it will flip. If you do that, it can't flip. So that's a really good. So, yeah.
Was your toboggan in the car, or was it out in the cold when it cracked? Is that why?
Well, I have no storage here, so everything is outdoor storage. So that was my problem. And also, it was it was really old too, but I forget the whole material concept. But there's some freight toboggans that are made of something that is cheaper than the others that don't snap. Eventually, they'll all snap, but I saw cracks on it the year before, and that was a sign where I should have watched it. And I just was thankful it snapped before I was on trip. So yeah.
That would be. I've thought about that often. What would happen if my backpack or my toboggan would break when I was out on a trip, and how do you get your stuff back?
It'd be terrible. I've been on a trip though where it was full of the slush, and didn't matter what you did, it was like pulling cement, right? It literally took us 4 hours to go 2 kilometers on these ponds. But that's what it was, and it was just bad weather. That's all. So it had nothing to do with whether. Actually at that point I would rather have a polk than a freight toboggan at the time. But when you're on a good trail, a freight toboggan just goes so nice, right? And
just a finger.
Yeah, and also remember though, when you're going downhill, that freight toboggan's coming towards you.
I didn't like that part.
These whiskey jacks, are they like a polymer or something? I don't know much about them, but I've seen one once, and it seemed like it was not wooden.
They're usually like it's HW, high molecular weight polyethylene, and then some of them are ultra high weight, and it just has to do with the grain structure and density and whatever. I think the ultra high weight, like the whiskey jack one I have, it was impact resistant. I'm not really sure what that meant, anyways, because he has an ultra high weight version now, which is a little bit slippier and it's supposed to be better in the cold. But
this is what Kevin's
they're all destined to eventually.
Right? Because they're
what's that?
Okay.
Yeah, they're all eventually destined to crack if you ghost ride it down a hill or it gets too cold and you put it in your car or something. But I think the newer ones are probably a little bit better, but I haven't had any problems with mine yet.
Okay. Interesting.
Plastic and cold aren't friends, so
no, definitely
doesn't
not.
surprise me. I've had a lot of plastic items. Extension cord, one of my first trips, the prong snapped right off. The cord snapped in half. You have to be very gentle with plastics, especially if it's really cold. It was -40 that weekend, mind you. It was, I think Mule Lake, they said it was the coldest place on earth for 10 minutes. that weekend, and I was camping in a summer tent with a space heater. I had the teepee done, but I didn't have the stove, and I was afraid to sleep in it. I thought I would freeze, so I slept in the summer tent with a heater, and then the heater went off.
No.
It has those little switches on the bottom, and I wanted to be extra safe, so I put it on a brownie pan I had upside down, and that little button just kept. And finally it made a dent in the pan and it shut right off. So I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, why is my heater not working?
No.
So
that wasn't cold anymore in the winter for me. I was like, hey.
That's the argument for buying the big bag, is like when everything else fails, it's nice to not have to worry about external heat. But
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, I didn't have that bag at the time. I don't think I had the Marmot yet.
It's $1,000 well spent, right?
Yeah.
Because I think when you don't get them on sale like Mike Morton did, they're like $1,000, aren't they?
Yeah, I had originally bought the Mountain Akuma Co-op one, the -30,
Yeah.
I just found it was kind of tight in my shoulders. Like I felt like I'm a side sleeper, so I'm going back and forth, and I was just getting so twisted up. And I had a bunch of money for Christmas. I told people like, this is what I'm buying. So if you're gonna get me something, get me a Met gift card. And I used it once, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. So I took it back, and I got, then the next week, this one happened to be on sale at Sale or something, and or Sport Check for $700. Yeah, it was $1,000. What's that?
Is it the Teton mic that you have? The Teton?
No, it's Marmot CWM or something like that.
Oh, okay. That's the one that replaced it.
Yeah.
So
it was,
when I got mine, it was originally $350. That's how much they were selling them for. I didn't pay that, but that's how much.
Yeah,
they
3
were
or
selling.
4. I've had mine 4 years, maybe 5. Anyways, they were $1,000 then.
Yeah.
So God knows what they are now, probably.
That CMW one that when you have, they just had on sale on Black Friday or Boxing Day. I can't remember. It's $700 and they had it on sale for half off.
Oh,
and
yeah, they changed it now.
Because they said they won't sell it anything to Canadians. They won't ship to
Word.
Canada. This is like Marmot, like not a store.
There must be some kind of rights distribution rights. They changed that one now too. It's the same warmth as the one I have, but it has a center zip. I think for people who are rock climbing, so you can wear a harness. But like as a side sleeper, I'm not sure how much I'd love that because my face would be constantly buried in the side of the thing. But I don't know. I guess it's not my problem for now. But
yeah, I was gonna buy it. Then they're like, we only have men's. We don't make them for women. And I'm like, seriously?
Who cares, though?
We camp too. Hello. Yeah. I got pretty pissed off. I sent them an email and they're like, well, we'll see what we can do. And they're like, oh, you're in Canada. Sorry, we can't ship anything to you anyways.
Yeah. So like for like, I guess it's just ignorance, but what's a typical difference between like a similarly rated men's and women's? Do the women's have a bit more insulation or is it like a cut thing or what?
What they explained to me when I first bought the other one, I bought that directly from Marmot when they had the Canadian division. And they told me that the heat, like the heated air, like not heat areas, but they have more insulation in certain areas for women in different spots than the men's. So like they had like a foot box that had more, quilt or padding or whatever in there down, I guess, in that area in certain spots where women get colder than men do. Apparently that's what I was explained to. But when I talked to these guys like a couple months ago, they're like, no, they're exactly the same, women and men's. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'd like to know. I'd like to replace the bag. I'd like to get another one, but actually I got a crowdfunding something. I can't remember the name of it, but it just came up on my Instagram the other day and I clicked on it and I'm waiting for information on it.
Like a Kickstarter thing?
It's a new bag that's coming out with some kind of like really different material. Actually, I just got the email today from them. I have to find it. Talk about something else. I'll find it.
Okay.
Bigaloo. Bigaloo?
Bigaloo?
BIIGLOO. It's a Kickstarter.
It is a Kickstarter. Okay.
Warmest, strongest, lightest. You must have it for winter. Minus 40 Celsius. Ergonomically designed for fitting your body to the last inch. Waterproof, windproof, breathable, and degrades naturally.
I'm not sure how it can be all of those things.
Wow.
So I don't know. It sounded really
Miracle
good
bag.
to me, so I clicked on it, and I'm waiting for
magic
more
bag.
information.
Like I know minus 40 is about as big as most. I think Western Mountaineering, is that the company name? They have a minus 60 bag. But I think minus 40 covers most people pretty good, especially in this part of Ontario. If you're going to be further north, maybe. But.
I use mine all year.
Even in the summer? Yeah. Oh my goodness!
I'm a really cold sleeper.
So if it's like 20 degrees, you just have it like slightly unzipped or something, or you got it zipped up the whole way.
Stick my leg out the side or something. Yeah. Most of the time I'm in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like, you're getting your money's worth out of it for sure.
That's why I made hot tents.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Guys, we're at 11:20. So maybe we'll shut her down.
Okay.
I don't see too many questions popping up. Oh, there was one that we missed. Has anyone ever made a tripod and pulled their gear in? We did that in the Scouts.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I've never done it,
but it would work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That'd be cool, actually.
Give it a try, David, and let us know how it goes.
So
It's
aside
been
from
done before, so it must work.
yeah, excuse me is asking if I'm drumming tomorrow. Yes, we're on at 9 for the whiskey live stream. Jim is being a brat. He's asking, when you're talking -40, do you mean Celsius or Fahrenheit?
It's the same, actually.
Oh, he knows. He knows.
Oh.
Why don't we just use Kelvin then? How about
I
that?
just saw it on the email. It says -40 Fahrenheit or Celsius.
Yeah.
At that point, I think it's the same. So.
Yeah.
It is if it matches up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Cliff. Yes, I know. I touched the mouse and it kicked me out. So we're at 11:20. I invite you three to stay in the green room for a few minutes after we're done. But for everyone else, I guess I'll see you next week for a little more live stream magic. Between now and then, please, everybody, stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and be kind to one another. Do you guys all have a goodbye that you usually say? Yeah.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks, Jess.
Bye.